My name is Fred Cook, and I drive school bus.
My name is Leanne Murchie, and I'm a school bus driver for TCAPS. It's been a very wonderful experience.
When I first hired in, one of the previous bus drivers told me that this particular job, driving a school bus, is the best job on earth. So I immediately took to it, and I have to agree that this is one of the best jobs that anyone can do.
What prompted me in the very beginning, I have a college degree, and she said, "You're in the safest vehicle in the world on the road." So I thought, well, I'm going to try. Because I would be on the same time schedule as my own children. And when they were off, I was off. When holidays, I was there. So it was the best of both worlds. TCAPS offers jobs elsewhere within the system.
Between routes, I used to, for 12, 13 years, I did lunch duty over at East Middle School, and now I paint.
They're real good about finding people the hours that they need during the course of the day to make the job great. We have Mesa Insurance. The whole district has it. It's awesome. It's the best health insurance. We offer a 401k. There's a sign-on bonus. It's a win-win situation.
The most important thing, I think, coming to work at TCAPS is you understand that you are part of a team. It's a part of a collective. It's not just bus drivers and then versus teachers. It's not that. We all are in this thing called education together.
If a person generally likes kids, this is a perfect job.
So I'm talking to kids all day, and that experience is really heartwarming, and I continue to understand what it means to be a part of the community.
You are an educator. You have a chance to touch children's lives every day. And don't think that you don't. You are such an important part of the wheel of education.
Quorum present, I call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. The board would like to welcome the audience and thanks you for attending. Viewers may watch Board of Education meetings and board committee meetings live on TV 190 or online at tcaps.net/board. Recorded meetings may be viewed on demand at the same address. Please rise and join Miss Cooper's 5th grade class from Easton Elementary School in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We are at the review approval portion of the agenda, and I do know there is one late modification on discussion item F. The very late turn, but we had a discussion item to potentially purchase three different passenger vans, one electric, one regular, and another regular when it became available. Well, we just heard that the second one is now available. We can get them both at the same time, so we just need to modify that to say purchase two 10-passenger vans and strike item 3 from the discussion. So if there's no objection, then we can have that. And I don't know if there's any other changes.
Can I ask something about the consent
Yes.
calendar? And that is on item B, the board policy. It's only there for renaming a committee. But I have just 2 or 3 questions I'd like to ask about the policy in general.
Is that B, 8B?
It is.
Okay, then we can move that to discussion. That only requires one board member to move it to discussion, and that would become item K. Any other changes? Do I have a motion to approve as amended?
I'll move to approve the agenda as revised or amended. whatever.
I second.
All right. Actually, Megan, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Byrd?
Yes.
Trustee Moonmore?
Yes.
Trustee Newman-Vale?
Yes.
Trustee Pack?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Unanimous motion carries. Okay, moving on to the next item, recognition, deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay, very exciting opportunity for us today. We have with us from Northwest Michigan Health Services, Heidi Britton and Karen Cooney. And Northwest Michigan Health Services has been serving the community since 1968. What began as a response to farmers seeking medical care for the migrant agricultural workers in the area now operates in Traverse City, Manistee, Benzonia, and Shelby to provide medical, dental, and behavioral health services to over 8,000 individuals annually, many of whom have barriers to access or care. In addition to their community health centers, NWMHS also operates school-based health centers in Mason County Schools and Manistee Area Public Schools. Coinciding with their vision to bring wellness to life, we are honored to welcome the expansion of Northwest Michigan Health Services next fall to provide medical and behavioral health services to the students of TCAPS. The new center located on the grounds of West Middle School will operate as a federally qualified health center and nonprofit organization to serve students regardless of health insurance coverage. This opportunity would not be possible without the expertise and dedication of NWMHS staff. Today we honor Heidi as an advocate for all individuals that have access to affordable health care. Heidi has served with NWMHS since 2014. She and her husband reside locally and have 2 sons who attend West Senior High School and 1 at West Middle School. Heidi and her team have been instrumental in applying for multiple grants and securing the financial path to make school-based health centers a reality for TCAPS. We specifically wish to acknowledge the work of Karen Cooney and Gwen Williams for their work as well, as we've worked on this project for quite a while now. Therefore, on behalf of Traverse City Area Public Schools, we want to thank Ms. Britton and the staff at Northern Michigan Health Services for your commitment to our community and the students of TCAPS. We look forward to building a lasting partnership and working together to promote health and well-being for all. So you'll see on your agenda tonight, we do have the approval. And so we are excited to move forward and try and, as soon as possible, break ground on the changes and the renovations to make that happen. So with that, any words or any thoughts you guys would like to give at all?
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. And we're really looking forward to putting this Child and Adolescent Health Center for TCAPS. We have been working on it for a really long time, I think maybe 2 years. And so it's a lot of dedication, a lot of support from the staff, a lot of energy coming together to make this happen. We're doing it down in Manistee, and it's been incredibly successful. We're really seeing some improved results with our kiddos down there, and so we're just looking forward to providing that here at TCAP. So again, thank you, and I look forward to partnering for years to come.
Thank you. So we have a certificate here for you, and we like to get our universal picture here with the board. So.
All right, thank you. And now moving on to public comment. Just before we go on to public comment as well, I guess I do want to acknowledge that we have received an awful lot of emails. I have been a little behind with the sheer number that have come in. So we will be able to get to everyone and get everyone a response. We did get a lot of acknowledgements on everything related to bonds, and the bond planning does continue with lots coming up later in the year as well. So looking forward to hearing that, and we do have some more presentations on that today. So with that, do we have public comment?
We do.
All right. All right, the board has set aside this time for public comment, and individuals addressing the board shall have one opportunity to speak and shall be limited to 3 minutes. Individuals should not make personal attacks unrelated to actions affecting the school system, and we strongly encourage common courtesy and constructive feedback. Detailed rules and procedures, including a complaint process, are outlined in Board Policy 0167.3.
Linda Pepper.
Good evening. I'm Linda Pepper. I live out in Grand. I'm a retired principal and teacher. I used to teach and was a principal in the UP and in Colorado. And when I was in Colorado, I was the supervisor for that kind of clinic in our high school for our kids. And I will tell you, it was one of the most popular places in our high school. We helped, Durango was much like Traverse City, lots and lots of rich people and lots of other people. And many of our kids didn't really have access to either mental or physical health care. And they appreciated it so much so they would fill out these ridiculous questionnaires just to get money for our health clinic. So they really appreciated it, and I so am happy that this is going to start and continue. And I wanted to say thank you for last month for what you voted for at that time. Second thing, I went to Representative Kofia's coffee today, and she has proposed a bill which will bring more money to rural districts for their busing. It'll be on per pupil and per mile. It is currently in the House budget and has been approved, but it has not gotten through the Senate budget. And there are two people that you might be able to influence. One is called Regina Weiss, and the other one is Darren Camilleri, and I hope I haven't messed up his name. One is from the House, one is from the Senate. It would be so appreciated if you and everybody else here would send them an email asking them to include the money in the budget so that we will have more money to be able to bus our kids and get them to school so we can teach them. Also, it will free up money in the budget to do the other wonderful things that we want to do for our kids. So I would appreciate if any of you, I sent you an email right before I left. It's another one of those million emails that you got. But I would appreciate it if you just take 5 minutes, write to those people and say, please, 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 we need this. It makes so much sense. My gosh, when I was a principal in the UP, we had buses all over the place, and it spent a lot of our money that we would have rather spent on other things. So thank you very much. I certainly appreciate what you're doing, and to you guys, that's wonderful.
Thank you. Scott Richards?
Scott Richards, Interlochen. I would like to talk about this Red, White, and Royal Blue book, Gender Queer, and Foxy Crack. These books do not belong in public schools. You have to be 18 years old to go into an adult bookstore in the state of Michigan. But these books are in the libraries. That's unfit. That's pornography. And I won't be responsible for it. But the people that voted for these books to be in the library will be responsible for it. Second, I'd like to talk about the Second Amendment. Oh, State Trooper John Hatfield does an excellent presentation, same with Sheriff Brokovich in Leelanau County, on cybersecurity for our children. The Second Amendment was given to us to protect our rights against infringe on a government that is a totalitarian government, something like the British back in the colonial days. They signed the Declaration of Independence, and when they signed that Declaration of Independence, they were putting their family, their farms, their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the line when they signed that declaration. That's why we have the United States right now. They gave us the Second Amendment to protect us from the government and from people telling us to wear a mask that didn't work, because the mask, if you could go to the library like I did and look it up, the filtration system of that mask didn't even stop the China virus. And that's what it was, the China virus, not COVID, China. So to you people in this room, the Second Amendment was given to protect the First Amendment and all the other amendments. So when they come to you and tell you to wear a mask that doesn't work, you have the right to tell them no and to protect yourself. Or put an experimental vaccine in your body that wasn't proven. So just want you to know you have a right to protect yourself and you have free speech. Thank you.
That's the end of public comment. Bill Wiesner?
Okay, I'll just go with yours. Bill Wiesner, Traverse City, and I'd like to speak on trans celebrity Jazz Jennings admits he still has mental issues after sex change. This all started when he was 5 years old. The gender-confused TV star recently admitted that he doesn't feel like himself and is breaking down after sex change surgery. Jazz Jennings, a gender-confused male, and his transition, 16 years after the media began promoting Jazz Jennings, a gender-confused male and his transition, the celebrity continues to struggle with mental health, further undermining the claims that LGBT activists that more surgeries and drugs can help someone who struggles with gender dysphoria. Jennings first declared himself transgender at the age of 5 and has a book, I Am Jazz, champions his transitioning to a female. I don't feel like me, ever, Jennings revealed in a recent episode to TLC. The clip shows Jennings, now at Harvard University, crying on his bed and expressing mental anguish. And it goes on from there. Also like to mention, this is an article from the United LifeSite News. A recent United Nations document calls for decriminalization of sex with minors, along with prostitution, drug use, and abortion. Goes on to say, with respect to the enforcement of criminal law, any prescribed minimum age of consent to sex must be applied in a non-discriminatory manner. Enforcement may not be linked to the sex, gender of the participants or the age of consent in marriage. When do we see, with the transgender, with the sex with minors, and then they say it's because we want to respect the children's rights for their own self-determination. And this has been promoted, I've just followed it for 23 years at TCAPS, but others have followed it before that. And it gets down to, sorry, I should have had this out. Oh, I had it right there. The word demoralizing. Okay, 15 seconds. Demoralizing, I'd say TCAPS is demoralizing the kids by promoting LGBT. Demoralizing means to cause to turn aside or away from what is good or true or morally right. It corrupts the morals.
Thank you, Mr. Wiesner. Your time's up.
Thank you.
As end of public comment.
All right, thanks everyone. Moving on now to Superintendent's report, deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay, so I am going to go ahead and first, we've had some pre-bond planning presentations across the district, a lot of different conversations with that. And so I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Christine Thomas Hill to give us an update on that and information that I think the board wants to make sure you're aware of.
So we have released a community survey and 2 staff surveys. One is a generic staff survey and then an additional opportunity for staff to provide more detailed information about specific buildings. To date, we have 146 comments or completion of the survey on the community survey. We have 131 staff surveys and 47 of the detailed staff surveys about particular buildings. We had a conversation and decided to leave that survey open until June 15th, the last day of the school year. That will still provide the architect time prior to the August 16th retreat to gather that information into a reportable format for the board. So we will be putting that out, just an extension of how long the survey will be open, and we'll have that shared through all of the schools in their newsletters as well. At some point, we do anticipate having more of these meetings, most likely after the board retreat when more information is gathered, so we can get additional feedback from the community. I thought if it's okay, I'd go through the presentation. There's some good information in here, some good data points, good talking points, I think, for all TCAP staff and board members to have available to them. And I'm happy to answer any questions throughout the presentation. At this point, we have been considering a bond proposal in 2024. So the board has hired an architect and a construction manager to work closely with TCAP's administration to complete facility assessments and gather community input. Those facility assessments also include programming assessments. This all relates to long-term master planning as outlined in the strategic plan approved by the board last year. For some community members that aren't aware, this is the strategic plan that has been approved by the board, and we are discussing that area over to the right, developing a 3 to 5 year facilities plan to provide optimal student learning environments. So all of this information being gathered is to provide data to the board to make some decisions as it relates to a possible bond next year. Just sharing some information, just statistics about our district. Our general operating budget is about $100 million a year. We are about 86% of that in staff as it relates to staff salaries and benefits, which makes sense because we are an education environment. We have people providing education to staff, to students, as well as support services. We are the second largest employer in Northern Michigan, second to Munson. We have approximately 1,200 staff members. We have $400 million in assets. I think that's a really important statistic just to be aware of. When we have a bond ask of the community of upwards of $100 to $150 million, I think it resonates with people when they understand how much we actually have to take care of in the district, and that's about $400 million in assets. We currently have approximately 9,000 students over a nearly 300 square mile boundary with 16 buildings and 4 support buildings. Overall, the total space within our buildings is about 2.1 million square feet. So again, when you talk about a bond proposal and how much money it takes to take care of those assets and all of that square feet, it puts it a little bit more into perspective for community members. On the financial side, just kind of highlighting, we've been at a 3.1 dead millage rate for a little over 20 years. That is 40% lower than the state average of 5.4 mils. As you are aware, we were just rated on our bonds that were sold on May 4th. That's a AA- credit rating from S&P Global. That's the top 2% of all K-12 public schools in the state of Michigan. And we've also been receiving the Excellence in Financial Reporting. It's a national recognition for 18 years in a row. This is additional reporting we do on our finances above and beyond what's required by law. This gives a summary of some other school districts in the state and what millage rates look like. We do have some in the area that are a little bit lower than 3.1, but 3.1 is a pretty low millage rate for the amount of assets that we maintain. Obviously, there are some school systems downstate that have higher millage rates, and sometimes you can see the different in facilities and what different school districts are able to offer. We've been very proud to maintain a 3.1 millage rate for our community members, and that's something that we would look at going forward, is maintaining that 3.1 millage rate. So out of the bond or millage campaigns that we've run since 1995, we've got 13 total. All but 3 of those passed with overwhelming support. The 3 that didn't pass did all include increases to the millage rate. So we've heard from our community that they're looking for that 3.1 millage to maintain and not a necessarily, not an increase to the millage rate. And we've just seen that as it relates to how the votes have come out. And then I just provided some historical data as it relates to the rates that the bond questions have passed as it relates to those that actually came out to vote. This is a slide I think that resonates with a lot of people. We get a lot of questions about what bond money can and can't be used for. Number one, it's really important to understand that capital bond funds cannot be used for employee salaries, benefits, or professional developments, nor can it be used for textbooks or curriculum. Any kind of supplies or consumables are not allowable under capital bond funds. Capital bond funds really are for infrastructure, construction, and improvement of systems and assets. I do get a lot of questions about why school buses are allowed, but some vehicles are not. I don't know the answer to that. This is regulated by the state of Michigan. School buses are the only plated vehicle that actually is allowable under capital bond funds. So these vans and some of our trade vehicles are not allowable. This is a little bit of a summary so far of what we have spent our 2018 bond authorization dollars on. Nearly 90% of our school buildings have the renovated secure entrance, main entrance vestibules. We have another one being done this summer and 2 more to go. I will tell you that when we went out for the 2018 bond authorization, this was after the 2014 that did not pass. And so we've been in a sense trying to play catch up with a lot of the work that was identified that a while ago. And then when safety and security really started to take that priority, a lot of our money that was planned for other projects, or at a high level, the money that was planned for updates to HVAC systems and things like that for 2018 was really diverted to focus on safety and security. So a lot of our 2018 $107 million authorization has been spent on safety and security, but you can also see all of the other projects that have been ongoing. Most recently, the Trojan Athletic Complex, and now the West Senior High Athletic Complex. And then a lot of upgrades to classroom furniture, cafeteria furniture, and that was at elementary and secondary. And then playground equipment upgrades as well to the elementary schools. I did include some pictures of different secure entrance vestibules. Obviously, they're all just a little bit different based on how the building was built. But the concept is that we're allowing community members or parents to come in outside the weather, but then they're really in the hallway until they are vetted by the main office. They don't have access to students or instructional areas until they're vetted by the main office. This is something that we've been very focused on with the 2018 bond money, and I will tell you, it is something that Attorney General Nessel was very impressed with when she came to visit us last month. And then just some other pictures of other work we've done. We've done some classroom additions at some buildings that have been growing in population. Obviously the athletic complex, and then just a plug for the grand opening of Montessori, which will be on June 6th. Trying to put as much information as possible out on the website. The communication department has created a bond website for us, and so we'll be updating that as we go along. This entire presentation is on that website, as is a QR code to take the survey and a link to the survey. And then really just trying to highlight, especially for community members, the Board of Ed retreat and what will take place. The compilation of all of the information that the architects and construction manager is gathering will be presented to the board in a little bit more informal fashion, but it's also a board meeting that provides an opportunity for public comment. The information will be presented in a way to make some recommendations on some priorities as it relates to some of the work that needs to be done in order to maintain or to keep a building open. That would be your priority one, and then they'll have some other categories, but this is an opportunity for the board members to have a conversation about those items and try to formulate a list, if you will, so that we can get some high-level cost estimates. And between August and January, we would be looking for a decision from the board on when to go out for a bond and for how much. Usually we would look for a decision in January or February, and then I could work with attorneys to get a resolution and start getting the ballot ready. This is the overall timeline. So we did start back in March. The architects, engineers, construction managers have all been on site to do the condition assessments and programming assessments. There were two to three different dates where groups were in every single building talking to staff and identifying and looking through the entire building. We're talking about lighting and flooring, the building envelope, concrete, everything that makes up the building, the infrastructure. Community outreach, that has started. I do anticipate that that will continue. So although it says till May 16th, I think given what is discussed during the board meeting, the retreat, we will have the opportunity then to do some more community sessions with our architect and construction manager. That bond programming and planning, so the team will develop the list, if you will, of the priorities and try to assign some high-level details as it relates to cost estimates and a time frame for which the projects are recommended. Obviously with an escalator on the cost if it's a project that isn't recommended for the next 4 or 5 years, but we'd be looking for a rough estimate of an 8 to 10 year plan with those funds. And then again, just highlighting the retreat, the opportunity to really dig in and look at all the information. That would be a summary of all of the survey data, of the actual facility and programming assessments, as well as any feedback that has come into the board via email or to the email address that was set up by the architect to collect that data for you. Have been providing contact information, so you are starting to get some more emails because we've shared your email address with community members so that they can contact you. A lot of people didn't know that they could contact all 7 board members at once, and so we have shared that. I've also just shared if people have specific information about finances, history of our bonds or projects, they can contact me directly, or Mr. Twing, who is Director of Capital Projects and Planning, if they have specific questions about capital projects per se, they can reach out to any of us. And then you'll notice at the bottom, that's a generic website that our architect set up. And that is if somebody wants to provide feedback that they may feel is not necessarily represented in the survey, they can go ahead and send an email and they will compile that for summary data for you and present it to you at the retreat.
And again, that email is tcaps2024bond@dhae.com.
Providing multiple ways to take the survey. We do have a QR code. We have postcards that are printed. I believe they're right outside on the table. They're at every main office. We've handed them out to athletic directors for coaches to be able to hand out to parents. It has the QR code, some information about the bond website, and then on the other side, the contact information that I just showed you. So people have many opportunities to provide input and ask questions. This is just the summary of the presentation that was given. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know a couple board members have asked for some of those specific details so that if asked any questions, I've just got some particulars about the size of our district and bonds and our total assets that I think are important numbers.
All right, thanks. Questions from board
I have
members?
some questions. What's the max amount we can ask for in a bond without raising our mill rate?
So our financial advisor has looked out 10 years and tried to project property values the best he can. He believes we would safely be able to ask for up to 200 million.
200 million, okay. And then one other, and I don't expect you to give this to me right now, but I would love to see from our 2018 bond, the projects that we still are working on that were included in that bond. So, for example, obviously West Athletic Complex, but the stem cells were included, stem cells. STEM labs were included in that 2018 bond. And if we, just because when we're out in the community, I don't know that I have a list of what's left with that bond.
Okay.
But when people start saying, well, what about this and what about that? It would be good for us as board members to say that that will still be completed before our next bond. So not really a question, just maybe an ask, so.
And I think we'll also provide, we're working on this today, everything that was done also, in the last bond as well, for you to have that information. It's quite extensive when we take a look.
I had a grandiose idea to do a presentation that showed before and after pictures, and I think I overwhelmed my assistant by asking her to do that, because it's pretty comprehensive what we've been doing. We provide updates at every board finance meeting of those, and so she was trying to take all those pictures for the past 5 years and make a big presentation. It got a little bit overwhelming, so still trying to gather that, but I do have a good list running. As far as what's left, I can certainly put that together. When we did the 2018 informational campaign, not all of the projects were identified at that time because we had so many projects that were identified in 2014 that hadn't been done. But I will tell you the big ones that were actually highlighted, STEM and the transportation are the last two that are a part of the bigger list that was part of the informational campaign. But I can certainly get you the list.
It's been interesting just to look at other bonds across the state of Michigan and what they're trying to pass. A lot have to do with safety and security, which I feel like we, as TCAPs, are so much further along, and it goes back to
Dana Nessel and her comments.
Well, and the guy Patrick, who did the entire safety analysis of our schools, and that we were in the top 2%. So that makes me feel good. So anyway, just a little.
I would just say thank you for keeping the survey open an extended period, and I think that we should maybe mention it weekly almost.
We've got
I
message
feel
going
like,
out and newsletters.
that's like for there only to be hundreds of responses, I would love for there to be thousands of responses. So I appreciate us keeping that open. Obviously, we want the input and we want to be able to make good decisions based on community wants and needs. So thanks.
Yep, absolutely.
I would add too, for all the emails we've got too, we have more emails probably than surveys, so feel free to place them on that, because they are compiling everything together, which helps us as well.
And I want to thank you for your good presentation. I thought that it was very informative. I thought the people that were there from the public really appreciated it. We did get some responses there, although there were fewer, but I would encourage all parents and all interested people to please take that survey, because I think it's a good thing to do. And, what do you want to see for the future of TCAPS?
Yeah, if I may, I just wanted to echo for the community that since we are relying on this survey so heavily, I think it's 20 questions, right? 20 questions, maybe 15 minutes. So for the strategic plan last year, we had about 1,000 survey responses, which was incredible. And we would love to hit that kind of target. That just would feel very robust methodologically for us with 9,000 student body. Also, if you do have, you want to email us, that's supplemental. I mean, you don't have to do one or the other. Do both, do all. I had a question though, Ms. Thomas Hill, about the criteria for the cost assessments. So are the contractors going to do a cost assessment for any suggestion, even if just one person asked for it, or is there a certain threshold?
Yeah, there's a certain threshold. So the items that they would be putting on a priority one list, meaning if you would like to maintain this building and keep it open as a school, you'll need to do these items. Most likely heating, heat pumps, water heaters, those things. They will cost estimate those out for you. But then really until they get some information from the board on how much further to go, they're not gonna spend too much more time on analyzing a cost. But those items, we've asked them just to go ahead and get some cost estimates for us. Because we would imagine if it's priority one and we're going to maintain those schools, that it'll end up on the list. So you'll have some semblance of, like, if we could go up to 200 million, we're looking at X number to maintain our assets and keep them open.
Okay, great.
But then they'll be looking for feedback from the board as a whole as to what else you are looking for as far as information.
Right. Okay, great.
Can I just ask a follow-up
Yeah, go
question? I don't want to interrupt, but, so for example, we know Central Grade School is going to be on part of this bond. I mean, wouldn't you say we know that?
Still, I think that's still debatable by the board. I think in a lot of conversation, but it's obviously a building that I think that the architects and engineers and construction management will identify needs at. That's for sure.
Okay.
I don't think there's any of us left who haven't publicly said that we think that needs to happen.
So, well, I guess then my question is, what's the word I'm looking for? From a construction estimate, are they gonna look at not only a renovation, but a remodel or a tear down,
replacement?
rebuild type of thing? Do you know?
They'll look for guidance from the board. My interpretation is they'll look at a blend of two, with information they have from other buildings that have been done successfully by preserving the historic nature of a building. Total square feet needed to maintain the same number of students is what they'll use to, and they have just a pretty basic per square foot cost that they know a renovation / upgrade will cost.
And that's what we expect them to come August with, but they'll take direction from the board. If the board says, okay, we saw that, but we'd like to see this or that, they'll go back and do that. But I think initially at that August, retreat, they're gonna bring some of those thoughts like Christine just said. That's where we'll get direction from you guys on where you wanna head with different estimates or looks or those kind of things for all these different things.
And those contractors that are doing the estimates, do they charge us? Like, charge us on what does a remodel look like? Charge us on what does a new construction look like?
So they're hired to do any cost estimating that you ask them for the entire bond planning. So it's one contract. They will do as many community sessions as you identify throughout the project. It doesn't make their cost go up. They're guaranteed for a certain dollar amount, which has already been approved by the board, and whatever it is that you ask in order to make an informed decision is what they'll do for you.
Okay.
And are they also projecting growth in Traverse City area?
Growth as far as,
Student population as well as just general population?
they wouldn't be doing that information. What they will do is focus on the cost for construction or renovation or upgrades, and they will escalate that based on industry standards.
We
Yeah,
did
it's
have
something-
a
yeah,
we did have a study right before you joined the board that we can send.
Because if you were gonna close a school, but we'd added to the bond upgrades on that school, you see
We
kind of
did.
where I'm getting.
Yeah, we had gone through in the previous few years. I mean, obviously, we've gone through a lot of that, and we do have a lot of estimates. Whether you agree with them or not but we do have professional estimates done as well.
Okay,
It was a pretty enlightening document. It was multi-years out.
that would be good.
And we have to prove that to Treasury, by the way. At some point, when we go to, present, we do have to explain that to Treasury.
I want to say that these surveys can be filled out by students too. Use your voices.
That's right. You know where the trouble spots are. I just had one more clarification too on if you can go back to the planning timeline. slide, and I'm looking at it on the website as well. So I know you noted that that second box for community outreach will be extended to June 15th with the survey, but I thought I heard you say that there would be another opportunity for community input. Was that after the August retreat?
That's my recommendation. I
Yeah.
think once we have some of the data back, I think the community may want to react to that. So my recommendation is after the board retreat, we have time between then and January to do another outreach. Maybe October-ish after the next school year gets started, but that's something that the board can give guidance on what they're looking for.
So in other words, it would be basically giving the community an opportunity to provide more detailed input with a focused list of
Yes.
priorities. And what, just conjecture, what happens if a completely new idea, is represented in October? Would we
That's
have the
up to
flexibility to
board.
adjust?
You'll have opportunity to adjust.
Okay.
My recommendation is you've really got up until, I would say January, but possibly February to really make a decision. At some point, not every single dollar amount's going to be planned. You've got to have
Right.
some flexibility, not knowing what's going to happen in the next decade. We have typically in the past reserved 1 to 1.5 million per year as a contingency for non-identified projects. That's something that the board could decide on what that looks like. But in the past, we've got annual allocations that we've had before. If we're looking to keep those, there's identified numbers that we just share with the community. So we have annual allocations for technology upgrades. We have annual allocations for visual and performing arts. Projects aren't identified per se, but dollar amounts are given to those departments and they make decisions on their long-term planning. Same with athletic. There's been an annual allocation. Bus purchases, technology, all of those things have had annual allocations. So if we are looking to continue that, that would be something we would share, but there wouldn't be necessarily identification of what that would be spent on just yet. That's usually a departmental decision.
Thank you.
And then so obviously central grade was mentioned. There's a lot of different ways that could be achieved, whether remodeling or different. There's, again, not to speculate, there's obviously a lot of different solutions, but all of them are expensive. So do we have to get through that entire process? Is that the identified on the bond?
So I think to me it's difficult because how much time and effort do you spend before you actually have the money to do the work to make decisions? I think that is a little bit of a blend of having some decisions so you can come up with a dollar amount and some type of plan. But once the money is approved by the community, I think it's really important to have those visioning sessions. Once it's decided we are doing this project and we're doing it in this time frame, then I think very, very detailed conversations with community members, staff, parents, after, much like we did for our other buildings, Eastern and Montessori. So really, at some point, there needs to be a decision of how much more conversation do we have before we actually have the money to do the hard work.
That's what I was trying to figure out where the line is of.
I think we've got really good data of other buildings we've done, the total square foot needed for the number of students attending a building, the ancillary services that are needed, and I think there's a good way to come up with a number per square foot, depending on which year the work is done.
Yep. And obviously, we all hope that it may be. Well, the economy is changing continuously, so.
Well, and I think Central Grade School just has, there's a whole other level of complication just because of the historical nature. Lars Hackstead being a huge community use space, so I think there's a lot to that conversation.
And being landlocked.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the more complicated. That's why I wondered how much we were going to have to get done before we knew if we had any resources to do it. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for making it so accessible. I think it clearly shows how much input we do want. So.
A few other things, legislative highlights. So budgets are kind of in full swing now. We have the governors, the House, and the Senate, varying levels and various line items across both of the legislative ones and then the governors. We will know probably in about 2 weeks of how much money the state actually has with the May consensus revenue hearing. And at that point, things will move fast. And so As was mentioned in our public comment, I did have the chance to talk to Representative Betsy Kofia just this morning. She was hoping to actually be able to come and address, but she actually got called to a meeting in Lansing by the caucus on budget. So she felt it was really important she'd make the drive and be there. But she did want to make sure to express to the board that, you know, if there any kind of personal communication that you or any community member could make to the chairs of the House Education Appropriations Committee, again, which is Regina Weiss, as well as the Senate Education Sub-Appropriations Committee, as well. I think Darren, it is.
I'd like to help you out, but I struggle with that one.
Camilleri, is I believe the way it's pronounced. So again, and I'll make sure to give those to the board so you have that information specifically. But also to Speaker Joe Tate, as well as Andrea Whitwer and the governor. There's some really, really key items in the budget. In the Senate version, the foundation is larger than the House version. And larger than the governor's version. And so there's kind of different varying levels on that. Probably the key one for us that we've been fighting for years is an equity ability payment for transportation, for the first time using language that's been used from a research study that's based off of the miles that your district drives and the amount of students you have. So you can only imagine how important that is for us. So I do believe we might be in the top 5 even districts in the state in that category if it was to go through. It was included in the House version, was not included in the governor's or the Senate version. So we've got a real, you know, fight to have that in there. So we'll continue to give that information to you and ask that you personally send an email or a letter to those legislators on that key point.
Who was the one you mentioned after Joe Tate?
Angela Whitwer
Okay,
is the, I believe, the Senate Majority Leader.
thank you.
So, so lots of work with that. We're going to be down there again this week, continuing to meet with them, advocating. It'll be a lot of my work over the next few weeks to really keep in there and trying to fight for those things that we have. Again, there is safety and security money. There's mental health money, which we'd still like to see increase in the Senate version. It was bumped some. House version and governor's, it's pretty much the same as last year. So there are little things that are wins and big things that are wins for us that we want to make sure our voice is being heard on. So we'll continue to do that. And then also there is some different education initiatives going through specifically that deal with labor and labor contracts that are looking to be changed. So those could definitely impact future contract negotiation work, labor relations, and so we're keeping our eye on that. We'll keep you informed as those are continuing to evolve and move along in the legislature as well. Then for district highlights, this is our Staff Appreciation Week. If you didn't get the chance to see, Ginger and the communications team, I think, did a great job with our cards of thank you. You are stupendous with the TCAPS pen. And so, again, with funding and GASB and all those things, there's not a lot we're allowed to do, but the one thing we can do is make sure to verbalize our thanks and appreciation for what our staff does for our children in this community each and every day. And so I know the board has passed a resolution last month for that, but want to make sure that publicly that we just thank all of our staff for the work that they do that is noble and honorable working with our children, and they do a great job every day, and we're just so thankful to have them. Again, it was mentioned about the Community and Parent Bond Survey. Please make sure your opinion's given. Please take the time to fill that out. We're going to continue to communicate that in newsletters, our emails, those things that go out. So we'll continue to make sure that we're.
Is there a link on the website or anything too?
There is as well. Yes, right at the very top with bond. West Senior High student has won the National Writer Series Scholarship. Traverse City West Senior High School English learner, Taquala Tokahali. Toka Hale. I'm going to give it that. Won the National Writer Series Scholarship for Nonfiction. She will have her story published in the NWS Literary Journal and will be reading her story aloud at the NWS Literary Journal launch on May 17th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the Alluvian in the Common Ground space. East Middle School Digital Media and Communication students. East Middle School student in the Digital Media and Communication Arts program competed against high schools and middle schools from around the state and took 7 first-place awards, 6 second place, 6 third place, and 14 honorable mentions. Congratulations to Drew DeLong and for taking 2 first-place awards, and Lauren Nichols for taking first place in field reporting. Community garage sale. The Traverse City Central High School Student Senate is hosting a community garage sale on Saturday the 20th from 12 to 4 in the Central High School courtyard. If you want to donate goods to be sold by the Senate, please, you can drop them off at the main office. All proceeds from donations and table fees will be donated to support efforts in Ukraine. The entry fee for your own table is $10 and can be reserved by sending a request via email to johnsonli@tcaps.net. And then we have upcoming events. We have lots of different things that are starting to happen at the end of the year. We have games, we have track meets, we have graduations, we have honors ceremony awards, prom, yeah, we have all sorts of things. So if you're looking for something to do, boy, we have something for you to go to. So if you have interest, but again, a great time of year to be able to celebrate. I think we're at like 13 or 14 days left for seniors at this point. A lot of AP tests are finishing up today. So it's that time of year that we'll be out and about and see each other at lots of different events. And so if there's any questions you have, please feel free to get a hold of me or Megan or Stacy to help out with that. So that is what I have for my report for this evening.
All right. I love the reaction of students in the audience. You can tell who's seniors too by the smile and the disgust on the others. So. All right, moving on to board committee reports. First up, board curriculum committee, reporting out by Trustee Moore.
Yes, so we had our curriculum meeting on April 24th. So we had a fantastic presentation from Wendy Wolf Schlarf.
Who's here?
Oh. Sorry. Hi. And Ingrid Pilainen, and that's later?
It is.
Okay, so I am just going to mention that they did a fantastic job. A good shout out though for Wendy, who has been with TCAPS for 36 years. I thought that was just worthy of a shout out. And they will cover what the presentation was. I would encourage all and any community members to watch that presentation, even though they're going to do it tonight too, or encourage people to watch it. It was really great on what our music department and what our music program is really looking for as we move through the bond presentation. Bear with me here, okay. So then we moved into procedural items. So first procedural item was we had the district course catalog updates, which we have at every curriculum committee meeting. There were no updates. We also had a strategic plan update by Ms. Kristen Burkowski, and because the curriculum committee meetings had met so closely together, there really was not many updates with the strategic plan. Kristen gave us a great update the month before. Third procedural item was grades K through 5, our math curriculum. And so if you remember a while ago, we had talked about the math, Ms. Jessie Houghton had talked about what the recommendation was going to be, and that there was a pilot program that looked at a couple different math curriculum. Some highlights that she mentioned, which I think are worthy of a second mention. We have 219 students taking AP math courses. We have 42 students that are currently dual enrolled at NMC. So those are definitely points of pride for our district. So we've been using Math Expressions. We've been on a 6-year contract, which ended in June of 2021. This is when they were going through a few pilots. We extended for 1 more year, and ultimately the recommendation is coming down to sign with a 4-year contract with Math Expressions. The goals, this is K through 6th grade standards. 6th grade is included because of those kids that go through the TAG program. Tier 2 and 3 support material, an online presence with adaptive practice, instructional strategies, and assessments that have useful data summaries. So again, the recommendation is to sign a 4, potentially 6-year contract with Math Expressions. Fourth item that we talked about was Teach for America partnership. This is a really, really unique unique situation. So Teach for America, I think it comes out of the Detroit area is where it originally started. And so we are being asked to identify high-impact teachers, high Title I populations, approximately 4 to 6 teachers at both Traverse Heights and Blair. These teachers will focus on poverty and mental health and the impact that it's had on the teaching profession. How do we keep and support our teachers? The goal is to inform policy at the state level and innovation and leadership in education. So interesting, these teachers that are chosen will have a financial incentive of $35,000 over 3 years. And it will lead to not only professional development, but overall systems impact across the state of Michigan. So again, we're looking for 4 to 6 teachers at both Traverse Heights and Blair. There will be a press release at the end of May, and then applications will come in early June. So we'll be anxious to kind of hear how that program rolls out and what kind of impact we can give back to the state for, for systematic changes. Then our other procedural item, we talked about cognitive coaching. And this was April 17th and 18th. Teachers let me start over. Cognitive coaching was April 17th and 18th. It was training that teaches coaches how to best facilitate conversations with teaching colleagues. That was actually supposed to be on the celebrations section. And then just a couple of celebrations, a few you've already touched on, but one, the TC West robotics team placed 16th out of 77 teams at the Worlds. The Worlds robotics was held on April 19th and 22nd in Houston, Texas. Another celebration was with regards to Battle of the Books. There was a team called the Reading Turtles, who are out of Cherry Knoll Elementary School, and they won one of their 2 battles, so that was a celebration. And then a couple of celebrations out of Eastern Elementary. So Mrs. Labar's 2nd grade and Mrs. Freeman's junior kindergarten worked on decorating lunch bags for a project called Feed the Kids. This is where JNS will be filling the bags with food for the community. So this will be an ongoing project throughout the end of the year, but just a shout out to those classrooms that help to decorate those bags. Other than that, our next meeting is May 30th at 4 o'clock, right here in this room. Any questions?
I did about the math curriculum. That's really exciting because I know they've been working on that pilot for a while. So if when they come back to finance next, I guess later this month, they will have a recommendation for either 4 or 6. They're still working through that, whether to extend the math expressions 4 or 6 years.
I think it's a 4-year contract with the ability to extend an additional 2 years is what Jesse said.
Okay.
Generally, when we look at that, we work with Cindy Farron, our purchasing department, and have conversations with them and see economically what makes sense and but also the length of the series before you want to revisit it again, all those kind of things. So still looking at those different options, but we'll have a recommendation at the committee meeting that's solid.
Okay. And I just want to say the Teach for America partnership, I don't know whose initiative that was, but thank you to whomever put that together, because I think it's a great opportunity for our Blair and Traverse Heights teachers. And I was curious, because it's not only them helping the state formulate policy to better serve students, but I'm guessing it's also to help retain them in our schools.
That is correct.
Of greatest need. So in exchange for the 3-year fellowship, is there an agreement they have to extend their service?
they have to be a part of in that building, a part of the program and an agreement from that, unless, they're not, for some reason they're not, able by district decision. But really, our biggest part was offering it, and really it's pretty much run by Teach for America Detroit for those teachers that select to be put in the pool of possibility. They really handle kind of all that. It's just their mission and their money that they get state and federal is geared towards Title I buildings.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
All right, next report out is the Finance and Operations Committee, reporting out by Trustee Raymond.
All right, the Finance and Operations Committee met on Wednesday, April 26th at 4:30. Thank you to the whole committee for substituting. So Trustee Humphreys and Pack, thank you for filling in, as Trustees Ballinger, Byrd, and myself were unable to attend. I think that might be the first time ever that the whole committee was a substitute. So I did watch the committee, so I'm going to stumble my way through this. So the committee approved or kept the prior committee meetings as presented. And then they moved on to bids, services, and purchases. The first item on this evening's consent agenda is a district copier upgrade. This is a standard 6-year cycle upgrade. There were some pretty good changes. So I think just due to some economies of scale and some changes in technology, it looks like we're able to remove like 57 copiers from the district. So that's pretty cool. So some savings there. And then also just general savings on the cost per click rate is going to save about $8,700 a year. And so then just familiarity. So we're going with the same Applied Imaging vendor. So that's who we've typically used. The machines are going to be the same make. Yeah, it should be pretty seamless. And again, that's on this evening's consent agenda. The amount is $385,326, which includes a 5% contingency that's being funded from capital bonds, and it's on consent. The next item discussed under bids and services and purchases is a district vehicle. So this is for a 10-passenger gas van, which will have a possible delivery date of September 2023. This van is from Hoekstra. It's a Ford Transit, and really will allow us to transport those smaller groups, and we won't have to rent vans or use a charter bus, similar to what we talked about last month with the fully electric van, except this one's gas. And so this was for an amount not to exceed $75,050. And this is actually going to be a change to the minutes. Under the minutes, it says it's on consent, but it's actually under discussion for this evening. So, so that's that van. Just the next item is 2 used vehicles that will be used for district use. These are just 2 used Ford Escapes that were being purchased for different employees to be able to travel around the district rather than, being reimbursed, using their own personal vehicles and being reimbursed mileage. This will save the district some dollars owning them. So these 2 vehicles, so both of them together, is for an amount of $54,143. And those are being funded from general fund allocation for district vehicles, and those are on the consent agenda. So the 2 kind of used vehicles are on consent. The van is under discussion, and then I believe there are 2 other vans that are also added that did not come to the committee that are also on discussion.
And that's only because we found out literally 24 hours later that they became available, of course.
Of course.
So, but they're holding.
But we'll discuss them this evening. Yeah. So perfect. The next item is the West Middle School Clinic space renovation. This is on this evening's discussion, so I won't really go into a whole lot of detail. There was quite a bit of a robust discussion during the committee meeting, but this, again, will be discussed later, but on the minutes, it's for an amount not to exceed $476,700. The majority of that will be funded by Northwest Michigan Health Services, and then TCAPS will fund some of it as well. There are still some grant proposals that are outstanding that we're trying to work on to assist in some of that project. So, and then the last item under bid services and purchases is a walk-in freezer at Traverse Heights Elementary. This is for an amount not to exceed $38,540. They are going to fund $15,000 of that from equipment sales, so existing sales of existing equipment, and then $23,540 from capital bond funds. Then moving on to informational items, the standing item of capital project updates. So went through Montessori, West Athletic, Traverse Heights, and then added a couple new ones. The bus lot and wash station is starting to get underway. And then the central tennis courts, making quick work of that. I was by it today, and yeah, it's going quickly.
Big
So
dirt patch.
Got asphalt now.
yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Totally.
Wow.
Okay, and then
Yeah, same.
the next items on that were discussed at the committee, given that this happened 10 days ago, some of this is now historical information. So the pre-bond planning was discussed quite a bit. Obviously, we heard a pretty good or pretty lengthy update on that earlier this evening. And then the bond sale. So the bond sale, again, the meeting was April 26th. So the bond sale was at the meeting was scheduled for May 4th. It did happen on May 4th. There were 13 bids for a $32 million bond sale. And the effective interest rate from the winning bid was 2.78752%. If you have been watching interest rates lately, you will know that that's incredible. So that AA minus bond rating or AA minus rating the district has definitely saves us a lot of money on interest. So the resolution is on this evening's discussion agenda. The closing for that bond is scheduled for May 25th. And then finance update. So Dr. Van Wagner mentioned at the time of the committee meeting, the governor and the Senate had released their budget proposals. The House hadn't yet. Obviously, now they all have, and more discussions coming on those. There were no other items discussed, and they adjourned at 5:30. If there are no questions, the next meeting, change of time, it's on May 31st. It's at 8 a.m. instead of the regular 4:30 time. So, thanks.
I have a quick question, and you might not know the answer to this, but since the two new used vehicles from Fox, did we used to have, or do we currently have cars that have reached their miles?
Yes.
And
Yep.
then, so then those
They'll
will
be sold on an online auction house.
Okay, okay.
What's left of them?
Yeah. Well, we got our use out of them, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
How long have we had them?
I think one of them is a 2002 Trailblazer with like 260,000 miles on it.
Wow. All right, TCAPs.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I'll do the board executive committee, skipping over a few items that we've already covered, including the presentations for Safer Kids, Safer Schools, and the visual performing arts that we'll see today. And we're seeing at the other committees. On procedural items, we did place board policy 8510 on consent, which was pulled to discussion. Megan, just to give you a heads up, I would ask that you have that policy handy, maybe even on screen if needed, just so other board members can reference it if they don't have it. I don't know if that's possible, but at least if we have it so we can have the words would be fantastic. And then we had first reading of a number of other policies as well, mainly around student discipline and head lice. We had a social media litigation discussion that is placed on discussion today. Also a agreement for a multi-year agreement with Northwest Education Services to allow inter-district enrollment. That was also, I believe, on discussion today. And then as far as HR, we received an HR update, including updates to elementary principal openings, Easton and TCAPS Montessori. And we've also covered as well the retiree reception on May 31st. Actually, we didn't cover that one. So retiree reception is on May 31st at West Middle School. We have 16 retirements so far, which again is historically low. So definitely retaining a lot of our staff at the moment. So communication, we do have a TCAPS Montessori ribbon cutting on June 6th at 4 p.m. And we've definitely covered the pre-bond planning that we continue to push out and encourage everyone to attend or give feedback. The next meeting is Thursday, June 1st at 9 a.m. Any questions? All right, next reporting out is behind the scenes at the Capitol 2023. Trustee Pack.
That happened almost 3 weeks ago, and I don't think there were any budgets out, but there was a lot of speculation by everybody about everything,
Sounds about
which was
right.
interesting. The other thing that was Demus represented the Senate because he's on the Education Committee, and the other gentleman was Colazar, I believe, for the House, and it was interesting. And then at lunch, I sat with John Roth's staff and met John, of course. And I also sat with one of the board members for Oxford and talked with her a little bit about, of all things, their dog program and what had happened in relation to Brighton. And that was very interesting. So I would highly recommend it for any board members that could make that meeting. It's good. It's interesting to see people from all over the state, you know, and just the diversity of interests was also interesting.
And I'll just leave it with you for the MASB report outs too.
Correct. I was having a lot of fun.
You can keep on going on that too. I thought you were moving on to the. I thought you were waiting
moving
for me.
on to the data-informed decision-making. It was very general, you know, not too awfully detailed. It was like a refresher 101. And then the one that I found a bit more interesting was the governing through policy. And that happened in Ludington. And one of the most interesting things that he said very briefly at the very beginning, he said, it's the board's role to make policy, the administrator's role to implement policy, but it's also the board's role to oversee its policies. And I think by that he was inferring that you kind of looked at how it came together, you know, and so knowing the questions to ask and follow up to make sure you were going in the right direction. So I'm keeping it brief, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks.
Keeping it brief.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any questions? All right,
Thank you for attending and reporting out.
Yeah, thank you.
I was more worried about all the deers I saw driving home from Ludington at night, all those little red lights.
As long as they're not
Both
bears,
sides.
we're getting repairs of bears, so as long as they're not bears.
No, you only get one of those.
All right, and then board office hours reporting out. Trustee Moore.
Yep, just this last Thursday, the 27th, I had great office hours. I had 4 community members attend. A couple, Paula Colombo and Jen Tersman. Paula is a local psychiatrist who talked, they have sent some emails regarding some of their meetings. It's a group of community members that are really working hard to support TCAPS with regards to mental health. They were big contributors regarding the East Middle School student, what do they call it? It's not a lounge, it's called the student den?
Yeah.
What do they call it at East Middle School?
It's a student lounge is everything we've referred to it to, but I
Okay.
do believe it has a name.
Okay. And so anyway, I would just encourage you all to read what their meeting minutes resulted in, and we continue to keep that conversation front and center. Also, Mark Spencer was there for Touchdown for Travers, so he spoke regarding Thurlby Field and improvements around Thurlby Field. And lastly, I had a mom from Blair, she is the PTO president, and really interesting conversation around PTO and Blair, and really asking for help in supporting that PTO. I sent an email to the whole board. And so I'm really gonna work hard to try to support local businesses out there to support the PTO and try to get some involvement. Maybe try to get some volunteers to help beautify Blair as you walk in, so there's some of that school being proud to go to Blair. And then just a shout out that their carnival is on May 19th and they're looking for volunteers for support. So, so anyway, that was really great to hear from her. And I committed to her that I would follow up with hopefully some solutions or to try to help to work together. Ty Schmidt's been involved in that conversation too. So it was a great office hours. I was happy I had people there to talk to. So that's all.
All right, thank you. And the next board office hours, 6 to 7 at Horizon in the upper level, is myself in attendance. I do currently have a conflict, but I'm confident that that will be moved. But if you please do check if you have any desire to on, we do have an update if there is any change, but I'm confident that I can rearrange my schedule for that. We do have a music booster conference, I believe, music, the music program at Central at the same,
25th?
yeah, which is fine. It's very close by. So,
Yeah,
but that's
it's
okay.
right after.
So that's fine. It'll be,
Yeah,
it'll
it
be
starts at 7 and that starts at 6.
That's fine. That will be an
Yeah,
efficient
right at Traverse City
jump
Central High School.
between the two. Okay. Then I should be in attendance on May 25th, and I'd love to see everyone there. Moving on to the consent calendar, do I have a motion as amended?
I motion that we accept the consent calendar as presented.
Oh, actually,
Do I have to say
need that one.
Amended?
As amended.
Yep.
As amended.
Can I just formally, can you withdraw your?
No.
No,
I
I'd
just-
actually like you to, can you withdraw your motion and then you can restate it? Sorry.
Okay. Erica may have to help walk me through this. I motion amend.
I withdraw my
motion.
I withdraw my motion, and I
Yep, and then.
move that we accept the consent calendar as amended.
And we
Nice.
have discussion.
No, that's okay. So we can do that without.
I will second.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Do that part. That's what I'm gonna
Procedures
say.
take time.
Sorry, it's, I know, I don't want to be a stickler, but sorry. And then, all right, any discussion? Nope. All right, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, discussion. First up is a visual performing applied arts presentation, deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay, again, based on board feedback, we have different groups that have come and have done presentations for the board on different thoughts for students in our community and facilities. So at this time, we have Wendy Wolf-Schlarf, who's our Director of Music, is going to, again, while we've seen this committee, the board thought it was important for the community to see it at our board meeting and be able to hear of the needs of the program. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Wendy to do the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Van Wagner. Thank you for the opportunity to share some history and some needs from the music department here at the board meeting tonight. We've had the opportunity to chat with several of you throughout the last couple of weeks, so I'm glad to be back. Joining me this evening, I have several members of our TCAPS music staff to be able to help out. And also assisting with tonight's presentation, I have Thomas Vieira, the Central and East Middle School Band Director, Eric Wangeman, West Senior High Director of Choirs, Angela Williford, a General Music Specialist, and also teaches choir at West Middle School. And I'm going to turn it over to Holly Oshesky, who is a General Music Specialist, to talk about some history.
Thanks, Wendy. My name is Holly Olszewski, and I am a 1992 graduate of Traverse City Central High School, and I've been a teacher with the district for about 22 years. Just to point out some history, there's some things in the slide. We've had a comprehensive K-12 music program for over 50 years. That's really unique in the state of Michigan. One of the other hats I wear is I write curriculum and work with the Michigan Arts Instruction, Education, and Assessment Association, which is a nonprofit out of Lansing. So I get to work with a lot of different school districts throughout the state. And having that comprehensive program, K-12, is really unique for our district, and we've worked really hard on that. We have been providing aligned instruction since 2004. It's important to highlight the instruction that is being provided is band, orchestra, vocal music, and general music, which is also unique in the state of Michigan. The students that graduate from Traverse City are recruited by colleges and universities, not just as music majors, but also to participate in their ensembles. And college educators reach out to us and they want to come to Traverse City and connect with our students and our staff. Our music students have received millions of dollars in scholarships. Michigan colleges and universities award scholarships to our students, as do other state institutions, such as the Eastman School of Music and the New England Conservatory. We have many examples of lifelong learners, and they can be found in our alumni as they continue to participate in music beyond their TCAPS experience, here within our own community through the ensembles at NMC and with the Traverse Symphony Orchestra, as well as I would say many churches and religious organizations within our community. And then just to point out that we have many, many students who leave us who go on into the music profession. It's impressive, and it's difficult to single out just one or several, but we do have alumni who are performing with national and international professional ensembles, from Broadway to opera houses in Europe, and instrumental ensembles from the New York Metropolitan Opera Orchestra and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. They work as sound engineers, composers, and conductors. They work at colleges and universities. They work here in our own district, and they work in other school districts in Michigan, as well as many engineers working in organ building and throughout the sacred music. So I'd like to introduce Thomas Vieira, and he's going to talk about facilities. Thanks.
Thanks, Holly. And to piggyback off of what Holly was saying, I'm a little bit of a unique situation, I think, just in terms of our teaching facility, whereas I had never been to Traverse City before I moved here and took the job as the Central High Band Director. And one of the main reasons why I came here and am here is because I really believe in the high quality education that we provide for our students. I really think that's true K through 12. We do a great job. And when you look top to bottom in the state, it's just really great what we offer our students. Overall, I think there's a need for expanded classroom space. At the beginning of this year, I kind of felt at the end of marching band rehearsals, I thought there was almost like cotton balls stuck in my ears. And I was like, maybe, my ears just felt tired, and I had never felt that before. So I started doing some research and some monitoring of my classroom just to kind of get a read on what the decibel levels of our classroom were. And we average about 95 decibels over the course of a class hour, which is suitable for students for about an hour a day, which is fine for them. But over time, that leads to just some damage in their hearing, and obviously me, if I start to hear less, that's obviously very bad for me and for our students, right? So just trying to meet those standards for quality education and letting the students really hear the intricate details of what they need to hear on a daily basis. Ventilation is also a thing that we deal with. I'm sure all of us, we're cracking the windows open and we're rolling the blinds up and we're trying to get as cool as we can. It's kind of the same thing on our rooms. The coldest our temperature has been in the band room at Central High School is 62 degrees this winter, and the warmest it's been is 86.5 degrees during our latest heat wave a couple weeks ago. So obviously not just band instruments, not just people sitting in a room, but the string instruments, when they're exposed to that large temperature swing, they're going to swell and contract and be more prone to breaking. And we've, with the millions of dollars that we've spent and continue to invest in our students and our instrument inventory, keeping it safe and promoting the longevity is really important. In addition, students often work in smaller ensembles, so like percussion ensembles and jazz bands, and having dedicated space for those students to work where they're not having to set up and tear down all the time is very important. And lastly, technology. I would love to use smart boards and things like live recording where I can record my ensemble and play it back for them immediately over the speakers and say, hey, get them to do some self-evaluation and some peer evaluation in real time rather than having to upload a recording, send them an email of that recording, and then ask them to listen to that outside of the class time. Using that technology that we have available to us, we just don't have it set up in our room, would be really, really great for our kids. And lastly, I'll talk about the upgrades in the auditoriums for sound, lights, and aesthetics, which we really, really appreciate. Our auditoriums look beautiful and sound good, but there's the potential for them to sound amazing and for our kids to sound amazing in them as well. And kind of to talk more about our auditoriums and the auditorium space, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Longaman.
Thanks for giving us all a moment here to just speak about the quality of our arts program. I'm so proud I say to people all the time, and I think I've been here about 10 years, and getting hired in TCAPS and coming up to be a part of this incredible district and the incredible music reputation this district has is really one of the most exciting opportunities I've had in my life, to be here and work with an incredible staff. And I think you can teach an old dog new tricks. I've learned so much in my 10 years here from great colleagues and from all of you. And I want to make sure that I'm advocating for a program that is really a gem here in TCAPS, and actually a gem in our state. As Holly pointed out, we have the most comprehensive K-12 music curriculum in the state. People look to Traverse City Music as a leader, and yet our facilities don't match the needs of this gem. And I can, a personal story, I'm really surprised at the quality of the performance spaces here in this district. If you look, we have made some really great improvements in the last few years to both auditoriums at Central High School and at West Senior High School, but they are still extremely basic. The story is, I was down, we have 2 students who are in the top 10 vocalists of the state, which is very common for both Central and West to have kids in that top 10. And we walked into East Lansing Middle School auditorium, and some of our parents went, "Wow, this is amazing." And I said, "Well, this is just their middle school auditorium." "Well, this is incredible." And it's nothing like what we have here. And it's their middle school auditorium. And so, even though our auditoriums are good, they're really not matching the facilities of our downstate friends, our downstate schools, and what kids down there have. We have 4 examples here of quality auditoriums from school districts that are much smaller than TCAPS. You can see Fruitport. Fruitport has about 2,500 students, K through 12. Okay, far smaller than us. East Grand Rapids, 2,800 students, K through 12. Reese Puffer, 3,400 students, K through 12. Saline has 4,900 students, K through 12. So our auditoriums, they're not really doing for us and for the community what we need at this time. And what we mean by that really is, when you have an arts-based community center, then the community will surround that just the same way they do with Thurlby. Thurlby is such a source of pride, and it is a community center. It's in the center of our district. Everybody uses it. It's a source of pride for us. And that's something that we don't really have, this community center. If we look at something like Lars Hochstedt, and think about that as a possibility to improve a community-based arts center right here for our school community, but our grand community as well. And so as the district determines the future of Central Grade School, perhaps Lars Hochstedt is a place that we could look to. As we stated earlier, both high school auditoriums function to a small capacity for each of the high school events, but what we really need is a large district-wide community arts-based performing arts center or auditorium that would be utilized by TCAPS. if it is built with the 21st century in mind, we believe that the entire community would use it, and that would even pay off in terms of revenue for the district. We look at how often the really, really, I would say in our area auditorium that is utilized consistently is, help me out, at Interlochen. At Corson, at Interlochen. And the amount that they can charge just to have you rent that, and every individual piece of rental that comes along with that is actually a revenue bring-in for the district. What we really would love to do is see a district wide, large performing arts venue. And that includes music, of course, it includes theater, but more importantly, it includes educating students around the performing arts, which we do well, but we can do better. A quality facility that would have the potential to increase revenue, which I stated. It would need to be, we really need it to have that 21st century technology, which includes lights and sound and all the technical aspects, including, visual and on the psych on the back. We need a larger staging area, and we definitely need a larger house. Right now, there are certain concerts you can go to in Lars Hockstedt that still does not hold all of the people that would come, I would say, like to a West Middle School choir concert. We packed that quite frequently. And so we need a larger space, and it needs to be acoustically appropriate where you can actually hear the instruments of our band and our orchestra, so that it's designed with acoustical engineers so that we really hear the balance of the ensembles that are playing and singing on stage. We really need a fly space. We don't have a single auditorium or performance space here that doesn't have a fly space where you can lift set pieces up or curtains up and down and move them in a really safe and effective way without moving huge set pieces that'll fall over on children. We need a pit space, and we need storage for on-site equipment, pianos, shells, risers, percussions, an appropriate workspace so that somebody that comes in and rents our space could, or even if the schools decide to use it, they have a place to assemble pieces that they will use in their presentations. We really need appropriate front of house space, which would include box office, ticketing, kiosk, bathrooms, vestibule that would act as a sound barrier. A green room is a really important part of a meet and greet. Again, if community was to use this space, I think that having a green room is a really important part. And then additional parking would always be a really important piece that we need to think about. Dressing rooms, small teaching spaces, perhaps a dance studio. These are all things that currently we really don't have collectively in one space that would really act as a performing arts community-based center. I think we feel like it would be extremely beneficial for TCAPS as a district, and most importantly for our students, to have the same kind of quality that we see in many of our downstate schools. And to talk about elementary, I'm going to turn things over to Angela Williford.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us to give this presentation tonight. As Eric said, I'm Angela Williford. I'm an elementary specialist here. I also teach choir at West Middle School. I'm a product of TCAPS. I have a son who graduated 2 years ago who is on scholarship, not as his major, but just to sing in an ensemble in college. And I have a daughter who's graduating this year who's almost a full ride to major in music at DePaul in the fall. So I'm very proud of our music department, but I know that we can do better, and it starts with elementary music. As has been mentioned a couple of times, we are at the top in the state for having a comprehensive elementary curriculum.
That's unheard of. I've taught in other districts where the elementary music teacher, if they had one, was just told to do whatever they wanted to do because they had no direction. It really wasn't a priority. Here, it is a priority. We have a curriculum that is taught at every building by every teacher. We know what we're sending to those middle schools. The middle school teachers can anticipate what the students will be able to do when they get there. So it's really foundational. However, as site enrollments fluctuate from year to year, it is our teaching space that is always in jeopardy. Having a dedicated music room that has appropriate place for storage, has appropriate place for movement, has appropriate place to do all the things that are in our curriculum is something that is so very important. I have taught in the library, in the cafeteria, in the gym, in the classroom. Not every teaching space is the same. Yes, I have the same curriculum, but I cannot effectively deliver that same instruction in any given space. So it's so important as we look toward technology and what I can take with me on a cart as opposed to what is installed in my music room. So having that dedicated space at every elementary building that is not in jeopardy of being lost, but is actually designed for music instruction. When we talk about the storage of our instruments and other manipulatives, I can't just put things on a shelf like a textbook. Not every shelf holds every instrument that I use. Not every shelf is the same. I would like those instruments to be secure. Sometimes my room is used for other things, and to know that my instruments are safe and secure when I'm not in the room and other community members are using the room is really, really important. So if we had that dedicated space at every building that we knew was going to be music, we weren't going to have to teach someplace else. Also, a shared music and art room. We have buildings that in the schedule, you just can't schedule all of those classes in that one room. There simply isn't enough time in the week for all of those classes to have their music and art time share the same room. So again, that dedicated teaching space. We do see all of the students in TCAPS. So every student is affected by whether or not we have that space. So I want to thank you for listening, and I'm going to turn it back over to Wendy to finish up.
Thank you, Angela. So one of our last slides is music is a gem for our district. And we've heard people talk about that. We're very proud to wear that. Our musical programs draw students and families to our school district as open enrollees, and we're glad that, and we welcome them. Our music program has stood the test of time by receiving countless awards and accolades and recognitions over the past 50 years. I'm excited to say, I think at one point in one of my committee reports, I mentioned that we had 11 Teachers of the Year over the last 30 years that have been awarded and recognized, and I'm proud to say it's now 12, as Chad Mealens was just awarded District's 2's MSBOA Teacher of the Year last week. So 12, that's a pretty significant number when we're talking about staff. And that goes with the last bullet. When we're in a competitive market for qualified educators, we want to attract exceptional teachers to be a part of our department. They need to have the facilities to be able to say yes. I appreciate Thomas saying I wanted to come because of our program, and Eric doing the same thing. He had a fabulous program in Hazlitt, but he knew that he was coming to a program that would help continue that excellence and help him grow and contribute to our community. And those are the type of folks that we want to continue to attract. So last but not least, pictures always speak 1,000 words, I think, and nothing like seeing kids in action. But our TCAP students deserve to have the facilities that will help them thrive and reach their potential. We're able to accomplish a lot with what we have, and so sometimes we feel that's a detriment because, well, you're able to do it with what you've been doing for all these years. Why do you need something new and improved? I think the biggest word would be barriers would be removed, and we've yet to reach that full potential. If we were to have facilities that did accommodate our student needs, that really did allow us to be even more creative in how we can reach students in ways we haven't had the opportunity to do yet. Our music students talk about, especially now that it's senior time, music is their family. They've been with these students. We've had the opportunity to be with teachers for several years. It's their community, it's their family. They take great pride in the program, and they take great pride in their facilities where they meet and greet and create art. We know that we're looking at the 24 bond as looking to the future. And I would so excited and so glad to be able to be a part of sharing the vision and the future for what we have in the music department, because we want to continue to grow and improve. All of our staff continue to do professional development and to improve their skills, to inspire their students, and to get better. So we appreciate being able to have the opportunity to present just this nutshell of a version and to be a part of future conversations as you move forward in your planning. I'll leave with Megan. I know that you mentioned May 25th. If you haven't had a chance to see our department in action, on Thursday, May 25th is our Music Booster Benefit Concert at Central High School. It features middle school and high school ensembles. It's a round-robin, fast-paced, hour and a half. You never get bored because there's always something for everyone. So I have invitations for you to put that on your calendar. So hopefully after your meetings, then you can come over to Central High School and see that program in its glory and all in its action. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer those. If not, thank you.
I have a question. What are you thinking as your priority? Are you thinking of upgrading at the high schools? Would that be your first priority? Are you thinking about one stellar place at Lars Hochstead with all its parking limitation? Are you thinking about kind of upgrading the high schools, a little bit in the middle schools, and trying to find dedicated space in the elementary schools? I'm trying to get a sense of priority.
Well, to be honest, at this point in time, we were asked to put together a list of all of those needs. And it's hard to put one against the other. So as we move forward in this process, we have not gotten to that point of prioritizing.
Okay.
We welcome being a part of that conversation, but you need to have classrooms where students can fit and have the space to keep the materials. So that really is a priority. But we also need to have those facilities that can showcase that students can perform and perform all together so they can hear each other. Right now we have concerts in the fall. We're just working on our 23-24 calendar, and we have 3 choir concerts between West Senior and West Middle School because we cannot accommodate the audience, which means our students cannot hear each other because they wouldn't be able to be in the hall. So it's I can't list that yet at this point in time because they all are a need. And we just want to be a part of that conversation because the middle school has growing pains as well. They have elements that need to be fixed, so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Dr. Van Wagner, this is more a question for you, but I think Trustee Humphreys asked if we could have a tour of some of our current facilities.
We're working on those dates and things right now to make available to the board, so that is in the works as we speak. So we talked about it this morning.
Okay, great. Well, thanks to everybody in the music department.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
really appreciate your presenting to us 3 times. Thank you.
All right. Next on the discussion item, school safety update. If I didn't talk about it.
And I'll be brief. Continuing to work on different facility needs across the district, taking a look at protocols, again, meeting with law enforcement. Patrick, our school safety liaison, is doing a wonderful job of really trying to put together all of the relationships with law enforcement locally, all of our threat protocols we're putting a ton of time into right now, making sure, based off of the latest FBI and U.S. Marshals and State Police guidance on what those things should look like. So continuing to work on that. Again, when it comes to budget, continuing to advocate for those funds that we've been getting for school safety. We are trying to get an appointment with the new city manager interim city manager, to have a conversation about an SRO at Central High School. So that is still trying to get scheduled, so we'll be continuing to work on that. And again, just always on our mind what we can do, and beginning to ramp up for some summer projects and some of those things. So we'll keep you informed of anything new. And then at this point, we have Dr. Kathleen Guy is with us here. So one of the things the board has asked for is the opportunity to hear an update from the Safer Kids, Safer Schools community group that has been meeting over the past almost year. And so this is an opportunity for the board and the community to hear an update from this community group and thoughts and what they're passing on to TCAPS and other schools around the region.
So good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to share the preliminary report and some related activities for our grassroots Safer Kids, Safer Schools effort. And on behalf of our co-chairs, Jay Berger and Kelly Herko, and the entire task force, I thank you for your receptivity to the task force and its efforts, and for everything that TCAPS has done to invest in school safety thus far. Because it's clear that you're committed to making our kids, our educators, our schools, and our community a safer place. So we appreciate that. So we began with a heartfelt desire to make our schools, our kids, our educators, and our community safer. Sadly, as we know, gun violence isn't new. Gun violence in schools isn't new. But Oxford hit close to home. In 2021, 4 killed, 8 injured, and an entire community changed forever. And then Uvalde, a year ago this month, when 19 children were killed along with 2 educators, 16 more were injured. Another community that will never be the same. That was our tipping point. At least it was Jay Berger's tipping point, when he rallied several TC Sunrise Rotarians to address the board last June. His hair was on fire, our hair was on fire, and we needed something constructive that we could do to make a difference. Grief, outrage, frustration, and deep caring for kids and educators brought us to our feet. According to author and educator Meg Wheatley, who I'm sure many of you have heard of, there is no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Let's think about that. No power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. That's why we decided to convene a group of 30 caring community members, including students, educators, health workers, social workers, business owners, law enforcement, safety experts, parents, and grandparents. We learned together through presentations and online materials. Our textbook was called The Violence Project, How to Stop a Mass Shooting Epidemic. Using data from the writer's research on mass shooters, including first-person accounts from the perpetrators themselves, the book describes new pathways to prevention and innovative ways to stop the social contagion of violence. The SKSS task force met in 7 two-hour sessions from October of last year through January of this year, and provided its preliminary report to TCAPS and the public in March of this year. Our preliminary findings from our draft report are these, as illustrated on the screen. First of all, TCAPS scores exceptionally well in the physical safety measures in place, as we have talked about Dana Nessel tonight and her perspective on what she saw when she was here in Traverse City. SKSS also applauds how much is being done and will be done, but we all recognize that we can't fortify our way to safety, because physical hardening of our schools is treating the symptom of a much larger problem. Our preliminary recommendation is to increase community awareness, not only about physical security investments that have been made, but about the continuing cost of these security measures, and that physical security is only part of the equation for safer kids and safer schools. Early student intervention, number 2, is critical to prevention of school violence. While educators are masterful at tracking student academic performance and intervening as needed, the process of tracking and supporting the emotional and social development of students is underdeveloped. The good news is that some of our schools currently have intervention teams and other focused staff resources to provide check-in and support for our students. From the task force's perspective, more resources should be allocated to these efforts. Number 3, the schools can't do it all. I think this was probably one of our biggest ahas. As a TCAPS parent and now grandparent, I've witnessed firsthand that students come first. But we see that school staffing and financial resources are already fully committed and stretched. Our teachers and administrators go above and beyond to ensure school safety. The community has the capacity, and we hope, enlightened self-interest, to play an important role in keeping our kids and schools, and therefore our community, safe. Our preliminary recommendation is that we need to elevate this issue to the highest community priority, inspire community members to act, and show them how they can help. I've lived in this community for 46 years. I moved here when I was 5. Just kidding. And I've seen how we can pull together to solve problems and create opportunities. That's what makes this city and this region so unique. And that's why the community is a big part of the answer for safer kids and safer schools. Number 4, some students feel isolated and disconnected in their schools and communities. Research shows that students who are isolated, bullied, and disconnected are more likely to commit school violence. The presence of one or more caring adults in a child's life increases the likelihood that kids will flourish and become productive adults. Relationships are the ultimate strength and resource for getting through any difficulty. And so our preliminary recommendation is to find where the gaps may be and involve the youth in helping to identify these gaps. We have the power to be part of the solution in our community by engaging caring adults to provide positive and consistent connections. And finally, we must raise awareness in our community and provide practical steps that we as individuals or organizations can take to prevent school shootings in our community. We need to pay exquisite attention to relationships. So, before the task force, this is what we thought. Use physical security to protect our kids at the school, along with some mental health. After the task force, community engagement is the biggest piece of those concentric circles. Intervention teams, secure schools, and students. So, as we look at the Swiss cheese approach, as was mentioned in the Violence Project book, it's not one solution, it's multiple solutions. And when you think about Swiss cheese, if you lay enough on top of layers, you see that the holes are filled in. That's what this concept is all about. Student and school safety, secure buildings, firearm storage, suicide prevention, communication and training, and well-being for kids. In our first round of community input sessions, held in April, we were pleased to have more than 140 community members attend 3 sessions, 2 in person and 1 virtual. The overarching ideas and solutions that have begun emerging from the April sessions are school-centered strategies such as expanding mental health services in schools and enhancing the culture of connection. Second, building a movement in our community to create a care-connected community through mentorships, intergenerational connections, and more. Number 3, promoting community awareness of existing community resources. We know there are many out there. I'm not sure we have a map that shows us who they are, where they are, and what they do, and how they might overlap. And then expanding the focus and reducing ACEs, those traumatizing experiences that affect the well-being of our youth. So, these and other ideas will be explored in our second round of community input sessions, which are coming up next week. So I urge, I implore, I encourage, I cajole you to plan to attend one of those sessions and participate. They are on Tuesday and Thursday. This goes for everybody behind me too. Tuesday and Thursday, May 16th and 18th, in person, TC Central Cafeteria from 6 till 8 p.m. We start and we end on time. And a virtual Zoom session will be on Monday, May 22nd. So if you are interested in registering for any of these sessions, go to SKSS, Safer Kids, Safer Schools, TC 2022 at gmail.com. So I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Just to clarify for the second round of sessions coming up
Yes.
in May, it's not a prerequisite to have attended the April
I'm
ones,
glad
right?
you brought that up. Absolutely not. We're looking for anybody and everybody who is interested in learning more about this, seeing how they might be able to contribute to solutions, ideas, and hopefully participate in the long run. So you don't have to attend at the first session.
And I understand students are very much in demand, right?
Absolutely. Okay. We had 3 students who were members of the task force, but we have been student light in participation. So we would love to have you come and join, and help us identify what solutions are appropriate. You are the first line. Any other questions?
Anything else?
I know Jay, whenever he comes and talks, always says thank you to all of us for everything that we do, but thank you to you and the task force for everything that you guys have done. And like you said, it's not just up to the schools, it's a community action that needs to take place. So really appreciate your guys' work.
It's a labor of love.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
To get credit in the audience? Okay. They get double credit?
We tried.
Double credit?
It should move a couple of quicker items, like maybe. Board policy, reviewing some board policies, devoted to Dr. Bab Wagner.
Okay, so we have our first reading here of a group of policies. So I'll actually pass it over to Connie Taylor to describe anything that's there.
Absolutely. So the board policy is 5600, which was also a replacement policy, and then the subsequent ones before you, running from 5600-01 through 5600-05. You'll note on our original policy that we're asking that we repeal and replace has last been updated in 1999. Or, sorry, 2019, sorry, not that long ago. So it's been several years. And so what we had previously, as you know, we used multiple policy vendors. That previous policy was from a group called Neola. We currently work with the Troon Law Firm, and they are our law firm that works with us on student disciplinary issues. So whom better to adopt a policy from the ones that are actually going to be defending it in the actual student discipline proceedings. And so their recommendation is that we take that 5600, which previously encapsulated all of the issues related to board policy, and break that out and delineate into separate policies, which is easier, I believe, for our community to read and understand, because it can be quite complicated. And so you see 5600, which essentially talks about the general policies around discipline, including suspension and expulsion. And then we have new policy 5600-01 that talks about the due process. That policy has not only been updated to reflect any legal changes necessary for due process, but also to reflect the district's current processes, which have been reviewed and approved through Troon Law Firm.
5602 is the Students with Disabilities Policy. There's special rules that apply to students with disabilities and the due process that they are afforded as relates to disciplinary measures. We also have our reinstatement following an expulsion policy under 5603. And then 5604 is enrollment following misconduct in a different district. So say a student had been expelled either by virtue of a mandatory expulsion or a discretionary expulsion, and the due process that they're afforded if they attempt to enroll in TCAPS. And then lastly, 5605, suspension from class, subject or activity by teachers, and this is also known as a SNAP suspension. And so there's lesser due process requirements for those students if they're going to be removed from by a teacher for a short period of time from a particular class. So these policies, again, take our previous 5600, break them down so it's a lot less cumbersome for one person to read and find what they're looking for in a larger policy.
All right. Any questions? This is a.
I had a few questions.
Okay.
If you'll bear with me. And just going through it, going through the very first one, 5600, and all on the green, all on the revisions.
Okay.
Student, and some of these are just questions. Student code of conduct, when they talk about the student code of conduct, is that a policy?
No, those are actually embedded in the student handbooks that are provided to the students at the beginning of the year. So all of our students have an opportunity, particularly at the secondary level, they make a point to review student code of conduct. It delineates various issues that they can be disciplined for, and also will lay out the consequences for violations.
Can I pull that offline?
It's currently in revision.
It's
Okay.
currently, and we
Okay,
do and we
'cause I
do
looked
that,
for
and
it
the board
and I
approves it
wasn't
every
sure.
year.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
board, it will go through committee, and the board approves it every year.
Okay, I was just point of question.
Yep.
Then in number 4, it says something about the 7 factors, 7 mandatory factors, on which all of it seems to hang. It says whether a student has a disability, in number C, under 4, is that diagnosed? So if some disabilities may not be diagnosed at the time of the disciplinary issue, is that taken into account?
Well, typically when it references that, it is talked about students who have been identified and eligible for special education services. So it is technically a diagnosed or recognized disability.
Okay, so if it's not diagnosed, that would be a consideration maybe. Then on the next page, any consideration of someone who has falsely accused another person?
In terms
So-
of penalties for falsely
yeah,
accusing?
so if you end up in restorative justice and one person has been falsely accused, I was just reading a tragic story about this kid that was a presumed rapist, and he got a lot of flack and bullying from other kids, and he ended up committing suicide. You know, is there anything where we mitigate, apologize, whatever, when there's a false accusation?
So-
And widely broadcast that this was false?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, when we go through the investigatory process, if it's determined that a particular student has lied during that investigation, there could be potential consequences for that individual, but also our teachers are being trained in the restorative measures. And so the goal of those are going to be to have that dialogue for healing amongst students, and there would be an acknowledgement that an individual was falsely accused. And also know that multiple times through our disciplinary process, we do provide supportive measures for students, and that can be additional access to our social work and counselors throughout that process.
Okay, because sometimes you'll have a kid that's had 1 or 2 incidences, and they seem the culprit that you would believe that was the culprit, you know, and I just want to hear that we're sensitive to
Yeah,
that.
we work individually with students in each particular situation, but keep in mind, because of FERPA and other privacy things, it's not necessarily going to be something that we would share out with the general population of students.
Okay, but you'd want to know that this person's been falsely accused. Whatever the circumstances, you know, somehow to clean that up. Then there's a lot of talk in one place, I think it's on page 5 of that one, about additional procedures for dangerous weapons, and it talks about, you know, if a kid walks in with a firearm, that's expulsion. But is there anyone who's looking out to that person's future? You know, if they're basically taken out of getting an education, I mean,
We
is
do
there
offer
anything-
generally a lot online, you know, of services to still maintain their education, you know, to stay on track for graduation from that point.
Or
That
to
is
develop a skill or
correct.
something along that line.
So, and I'll mention too, when we talk about mandatory permanent expulsion technically constitutes 1 full year of school. So a student may have an opportunity if they meet particular conditions, and some of that may be successful completion of online education, counseling services. They may have an opportunity to return to the school environment.
And we have a committee that looks at that includes 2 board members.
Okay.
Whenever we have a
and
reinstatement.
I have a question on that one in a minute. Physical assault against an employee, volunteer, or contractor. Any physical assault? I mean, if it's a push, is that a lot different than a hit?
It's going to be circumstance driven, so you can have students, I'll just say that a staff member intervenes and they're between an altercation with students and they happen to be injured. We're gonna look at the intent behind what had happened. Is there a potential that is accidental none of it is necessarily cut and dry. The district doesn't have necessarily zero tolerance policies. This is, if this happens, then absolutely that.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. And then in policy 56.01, when they're talking about expulsion, they say that only 1 board member is part of the, I think it's the remediation, is that part of it? Provide parent and guardian costs. Part of the appeal process. And it says that there's a board designee, you know, or a central office administrator other than the hearing officer. But it's only 1, whereas when we go to the policy in 5600.03, I think it takes 2 board members as part of a committee to review.
That's
reinstatement.
That's a reinstatement, so that's after the fact.
Okay.
1
So
before the fact and appeal.
Just 1 in that.
Which is a designee, which, you know, Kristen's my designee in that element. If it's appeal, it comes to me.
Yeah, it's not a board.
It's not a board member, it's administration.
Okay,
It's after the fact, after a student's been expelled and they ask for reinstatement. At that point, 2 board members, as we
It's a
have, are a part of
committee.
that committee.
Right, but I was just, when I was saying board, what board
Yep.
was, I guess, my question. On that, then I have another question, and it is on 5600.04. And this is where it says the superintendent must refer the student. It's line 4 in the beginning of that first paragraph. And I'm not quite sure what refer means. Refer the student to his or her designee hearing officer if under blah, blah, blah.
Yes, so the way that this works, if a student has been, okay, let me just clarify. If it's a mandatory expulsion in another district, the TCAPS has no discretion to enroll that student. If they're mandatory expelled, they're not able to enroll in any public school.
It's across the state
It's
of
across the
Michigan.
state. If it's discretionary, then the district could deny that student enrollment.
after they've had an opportunity, and the superintendent would refer it to a hearing officer, they would get due process in our district, even though they've never attended our district. So we would consider the student's previous record in their district, and if it was something that they could face expulsion in TCAPS, TCAPS could move forward with essentially expelling them from our district, thereby preventing them from enrolling in TCAPS. But you can't do that automatically. You have to, he would refer it to the hearing officer, which in this case would be Associate Superintendent Perkowski. She would review the student's record, give them an opportunity to present any mitigating factors that they would want TCAPS to consider prior to making that determination.
Okay. And one last question. The only time I saw drugs mentioned as a negative thing was under the policy addressing students with disabilities. I didn't see it mentioned as a regular thing when you're looking at students without disabilities. And I would assume that it would be drugs, legal drugs as well as illegal drugs.
Well, so what you'll see is in those code of conducts, they do
So it'll
address,
be in there.
it does
Yeah.
address student drug use. So you have multiple, if a student's in possession, it depends on what they're in possession
Distribution.
of, if they're distributing, if they're utilizing at school. So the code of conduct will break that down.
Okay, and I just was curious why it was in the disability section, but not students in general.
Basically, because the students with disabilities section is very statutorily driven, so it would mean that that language was probably in the statute that directs the due process due to a student with disability.
And Beth, I would add, like, a lot of the, as you'll find, like, a lot of the policies are linked with other policies and reference other policies. So this is the first reading, so we're not passing anything today. And I would suggest as well, if you want to go into like really detailed questions, it's probably easier to do in front of a computer where you can cross-reference everything. And John, I'm sure, would set up.
Yeah, so if we, like, you have questions like this, normally in the first reading, we'd review, and then you can set an appointment up with Connie, whatever, and we can answer these kind of questions. It generally doesn't happen at the board
Those were the
table.
questions that I had, you know, and it just, trying to make it make sense, see how it works, you know?
So yeah, feel free any point, like after a first reading, to go ahead and set, like,
Which
set
is
that up.
commonly done too. with
Okay,
board
but
members, so.
my first reading was on Friday.
But I'm saying that you can say that you have a whole nother board meeting until it comes back again. It has
We
to come back.
We
a
don't take
second
any action. That's kind of why we try and do the multiple reading process as well, to allow public as well as board members though as well, because some of them do get very detailed, for sure, especially when you're breaking it down into
I noticed that.
things.
Okay.
Those were my questions on those.
All right. Any other questions on any of the first readings?
I'm sorry, I also failed to mention, there is a new policy in here that addresses head lice.
I have questions on that.
So this was a surprise to our school nurses that we did not previously have a policy that refers to our protocols for not only determining whether or not a student actually has head lice, but a program to put in place to eradicate and return them to school safely.
Yeah, that was my question there, is that I didn't see, you've answered what it is, which is in that first paragraph, you know, but how do you know? How do you examine? What are the steps? And then what do you do about it? And then how do you decide? And that seemed to be the steps in the policy that I wasn't seeing.
No good.
Yeah. You would refer to it. This is basically the what, and then the administrative guidelines get down into the more detailed, the how.
Okay.
How they would do that. In some cases, it will depend on building and the level of the outbreak in a particular building.
Oh, yeah.
So in terms of Hoover
So
screening.
once we get a past policy, at that point, we'll build the administrative guideline.
Yeah.
And then I think that comes back to the MASB training, as the administrative guidelines are also online. So there have been times in the past where the administrative guidelines, the board felt
Right.
didn't meet the policy as intended. And that can be achieved by two different ways. Is one, talking to the administration who can amend their guidelines, or B, which I don't remember a time that it's come to in our board, we can obviously then review the policy, make it very specific to basically say this is how we
I was
see
just thinking, you know, we're in more detail, obviously, with expulsion. It seems like, you know, it's just kind of dealing with headlines is
When you,
pretty.
well, you'll be
But
surprised.
it can
when you
change
go,
based on CDC guidelines,
Yeah.
based on Michigan Department of Health, so those give me the authority as superintendent or whoever sits in the seat, the authority to create those guidelines based on recommended practice.
And we're working really closely, like I said, with our school nurses. They've been pivotal in this process because they're the ones who are actually dealing with it
They're
on a
the
daily
ones
basis.
who are identifying the problem.
Not one of their more glorious tasks that they have.
It's okay, been there. I know it is.
and then if you do go online, which isn't just, this is for our benefit too, like the policy links are amazing to say, here's all the administrative guidelines. You can actually search all of those online too. They're online. And then I think,
I was just going
I don't know if it
through the
references- I think it
new
references-
green
I think
things
on
in
the
the board
policy it
packet.
references.
The numbers correspond
The
across.
numbers correspond.
Yeah.
So like you can actually look up the administrative
Administrative
guidelines
guidelines
based
for the
off of policy.
5,600, you would.
And similarly, there's forms. So if there's a particular form that we have people fill out, that will also be linked by the same number.
So-
But a lot of your questions are clarifying questions as to kind of how the process works. And so I think that's a better one-off with Connie asking just, what does this mean? How does this look like? Would be my thought, right?
Yeah, whenever you have these, feel free to let me know, and Megan and I will set you a conversation up.
And I'm always happy to do that.
And then I think when you see the John asking for guidance from the board, I think that's when he feels that he doesn't know how to build into the administrative guidelines the will of the board, so he will ask. But that's
Once in
where
a
it
great
comes-
while, I'll
Yeah.
get some feedback before we write.
There's
the
been a
guideline.
couple. Just it's not common, but it's happened. So. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions on board policies, first readings? All right, they'll be on the next meeting agenda as well. Next discussion item, West Middle School clinic space renovation. Defer to Dr. Van Wagner.
And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Christine.
Yeah, so we had a nice recognition, and we still have our guests here. We reviewed this a little bit more detail at Board Finance, and I think there were some questions. So we thought the opportunity still have Heidi here to answer any questions if there was some about the operation. This has been a long time coming, obviously, as it relates to current capital project cost for construction. That's been a little bit of a challenge. We only received 2 bids on this project. I think probably because of the nature of the total dollars in some other projects that are available for contractors, we didn't get a lot of interest. However, we are recommending a contract to Eckler, and we are committed to working with Heidi and her architect, as well as Paul Twing and the contractor, to still look at costs associated with the project. The builder does believe that he can help us with some of those costs to kind of lower the expenses, but also we're still looking for additional grant opportunities to fill the hole of some of the money not quite yet raised. We're also hearing from legislation possible opportunities for additional resources and grant opportunities for allocations within the school for these monies. So definitely wanted to give the opportunity if there were any specific questions for Heidi about the program itself, but really excited to be able to renovate a small portion of the old art building outside of West Middle School to be able to have that clinic on site. And have been working directly with Heidi and with the current lead assistant principal at West Middle School about what that would look like for students and how we would advertise that to parents.
Is there any discussion?
I guess I'll have a question for the staff, the directors of the center, but also I wanted to just clarify one thing regarding the proposal for Eckler. Is this $476,000 just for the renovation of the existing space, or is it also the addition?
There's no addition, it's just renovation of existing
Oh, okay,
space.
okay.
It's just I think it's just shy of 900 square feet. The building is larger, but it's a small part of the old building. There's no addition.
Okay, so this is it, the
Yep.
whole build?
Yep.
Okay, great. I guess just then on the operations side, could you provide us an overview of like how many clinicians or
Sure.
social workers you're
Sure.
planning to have, and the funding sources, just so we kind of get that big picture.
Sure. So about 2 years ago, we wrote a grant to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to open up a school-based health center for TCAPS. We did it in partnership. It'd been a pretty long discussion that we had with TCAPS several years ago. Timing wasn't right for a long time. Kind of walked away from it, and then state keeps on putting more money out there for schools to pick up school-based health centers for multiple reasons. Either a full-fledged school-based health center, which is the funding that we went after. There's also strictly just it's E3 money, it's put behavioral health right into the school district, which I do believe you also have, which is awesome. We just went after a bigger scope, so we got $170,000 initially, and that will continue on. And then we additionally went after ARPA funds with the county for another $150,000. So we're at about, $320 at this point. The staffing model is such that we'll have a full-time a receptionist, medical assistant, and then we'll provide medical services and behavioral health services we'll have at least 24 hours of care 5 days a week. And that includes when school's out of session. During holidays, we're always open. The one that we have in Manistee, we have a therapist that is there 5 days a week because it's needed. And our physician's assistant is staffed 3 days a week. If it were to grow, we would staff it up. The funding supports at least 24 hours, and it is the grant requirement that we are providing services at least 24 hours a week at the school. And also we are subject to the requirement of having at least 200 users of the clinic, right? So not hard to hit. It won't be hard to hit just looking at TC West Middle. But this is open to the school district, so I would assume elementary kiddos, high school kiddos would be able to access this resource as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions I can entertain?
Would it work a little bit like an urgent care?
Well, so not really, sort of, but we'll work. I've never been asked that question. I appreciate that. No. We'll establish care with our patients. If they have a provider in town, we'll work collaboratively with that partner or with that provider and ensure that the kiddo has, if we see them for whatever, that we share the records as well with their primary care, but we also can be the primary care. So we are comprehensive primary care as well as behavioral health services.
So if a child were to be brought in by some friends with a drug overdose,
yeah,
you guys would just
we'll be
refer
calling
him
911.
off?
Absolutely, all day long, as will the school be. Yeah, we are not that.
Okay.
We are more of, we're not that. I don't know what else to say to that. So my kid, right, I'll just use my kid as an example. I could establish care at the clinic for maybe medical services, and during the school day, instead of me going and picking him up and taking him to wherever because he's got a runny nose, like to urgent care per se, I could say, you know what, just go see the provider there at the clinic. And I've already signed a consent form. I've already established care there, and they'll take care of them.
So upper respiratory.
Absolutely.
Maybe some minor musculoskeletal things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I think
School physicals, sport physicals, like
Lights.
regular child wellness.
Headlights.
And then headlights.
There you go.
Behavioral health as well, right? So we're doing risk assessments with every child that comes through the clinic. It's a risk assessment done, and we identify areas of need. So we have our support team there to start therapy, interventions, whatever is needed. And we're not a school nurse, and we're not there to do IEPs. We're not there to do that part of the school stuff. we are another resource for the school, which is the awesome part about the whole thing.
Would you manage a chronic disease? Like asthma? Asthma there?
Absolutely, right?
And diabetes, so then you
Absolutely.
could work in conjunction with the school nurse.
Absolutely,
For
like for
those.
beds and stuff, sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you, great questions.
I was just going to ask you, first of all, Heidi, thank you for being here. And also, will you see outside kids from TCAP? So let's say maybe a Pathfinder student, no.
Only TCAPS kids.
Only TCAPS kids, okay, thank you.
And that's true even in the summertime?
Yep,
Holiday
absolutely,
period?
yeah.
Okay. So I could see how you're going to be at capacity with students during the school day, but I am curious if y'all have like a communications plan for
Yeah.
advertising your services around the whole, the
Right,
recess
so-
periods.
So, so a couple things. I'm going to work really closely with Ginger. And once this meeting happened, discussions happened, approvals happened, I have my board meeting later on this month as well. We'll keep those approvals going. And then, once we have a plan of what this looks like moving forward, I plan to splash it out along with the school district. Not only because I need to start hiring folks, but also I want to create some synergy and energy before school gets out, especially the board that we're going to have, which is a community advisory board. So I'm going to be looking, I just told my high school son today, ask your friends, we're going to get your school kiddos on this board. We don't need everybody, of course. But, a couple middle school kids to be mentored by the high school kids. We're going to hopefully have someone from the school. We'll have a couple parents. And that's the power of this because they run their clinic. This is their clinic. This isn't NMHSI's clinic. This isn't TCAP's clinic. This is like the kids' clinic, right? This is powerful. This is empowering them and learning how to do this work, how to do this good stuff that's going to follow them throughout life. So that's sort of how it's going to roll, and hopefully we'll be opened up by early fall. So we can be there for West Middle School's even open house as the kids are coming through. So it's a tour. I don't know if that'll really happen, but I could kind of envision as you're touring your kid around at the West Middle School, that would be one of the stops, is to showcase the work that we do there.
I have a question just on the actual the item. So you said about 300 plus. You've already received $300,000
Yes,
to go towards this?
320,000.
So are we really just approving the difference?
Oh, no, we're
The whole
paying
thing,
it.
so the district will do the project and get reimbursed with their grant funds.
So like
because
our-
it's our
so
facility,
like
just like
the-
we're doing
like
at Traverse
Traverse
Heights.
Heights, okay.
Yep.
And we have 50,000 that we'll know here in June.
And
Yes,
the
for an
county
additional-
ARPA funds have already been
Yep,
approved?
yep. First round, super excited
And
about
that's
it.
a Rotary
Yeah.
Charities grant that you're waiting
The
on.
Rotary
Yeah.
Charities has been asked for. Karen and I already had a meeting with them. We won't know until the 1st of June.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
We put good words in.
Yeah, I think we're pretty strong on our funding so far. So like this leftover, it's not only gonna fall on, this is a pretty big partnership, and we're all a little vulnerable in it. So we're just all here to make sure we just get to the finish line. Following this, the construction alteration finishes. At that point, moving forward, Northwest Michigan Health Services will continue to get the state grant, which will fund the operations.
Be nice, Montessori's right there, new Montessori will
Yeah,
be right there too,
right.
so I mean.
Yeah, we need a
there's-
walking path.
Yeah.
Have it,
I
the
think
Buffalo
it's
Trail,
there.
go
Yeah.
right there.
There, it's ready to go.
Some passes. We're moving kids back and forth in a safe manner.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
So
Awesome.
one mid-level provider and I assume a clerical person to.
Yes.
Reception.
Yeah, like a medical
24/7?
assistant, clerical, a PA or an NP,
24/7.
and then a licensed clinical social worker. That's the staffing model. Pretty slim.
We'll take it.
I know. It'll be
Appreciate all
exciting.
your work. I know this has been
Thank you.
a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
So. Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education award a contract to Eckler Building Solutions LLC for an amount not to exceed $400,076,700, including a 5% contingency. The majority of the project will be funded by Northwest Michigan Health Services. and the components of the renovation that are TCAP's expectations for safety and security will be funded by the district. Both entities have worked on grant proposals and will continue to do so in order to reduce each entity's contribution toward the project.
Second.
Megan, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Byrd?
Yes.
Trustee Moonmore?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Newman Vale?
Yes.
Trustee Pack?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you again for all the work. Moving on to district vehicle purchase, deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Yes. So this is a bit of a change. We did have committee, but some, quick changes to this thing. I can't just kind of help but laugh because Christine's seen about 9 renditions of the vans.
It's all due to supply and demand.
It is.
And it's constantly changing. You have about 21 school districts that are looking for these, and not many entities that have them. And you can speak to the visit that you did at Gorno Ford, and they never even know what's showing up. They place their order, and then they wait for it to show up with an invoice. So it's kind of, if we get it, do you want it? And you need to move fast if you're looking to get these.
And so literally, I was in Detroit for a meeting, and I drove to Gorno Ford in Woodhaven, Brownstown, downriver. And while I'm sitting with the guy, he said, "You're not gonna believe it, but another one showed up this morning." So what's interesting about these is that they're manufactured as a 12-passenger van, and only a manufacturer can change it. And so Ford actually is to have them actually make a 10-passenger van is very expensive. It's not their normal production. It's like a special unit of Ford that you have to order it through a dealer does. So what you are able to do though is Ford has certain approved van manufacturers that can take like a chassis or another one, and generally it's done for students or for people with mobility issues, where they will make it wheelchair accessible, those things, and they're able to change the makeup of the van and recertify it with a different manufacturing tag if necessary. Well, that's exactly what this company does, is they take 2 seats out of it and put running boards on it and recertify it as a 10-passenger van. And so there's only select ones that Ford approves to be able to do it with that. And so what you are dependent on is the Gorno getting the van, that there is an opening for the manufacturer that does the mobilized services to completely fix it and redo it with their other schedule. Sometimes they just pop them in when they do. And you got to make sure that nobody wants the 12-passenger, because most places that are nonprofits are not subject to the 10-passenger van that we are under the National School Bus Safety Guidelines. So you can see how convoluted the whole thing is and why they're so hard to get. But the good news is that Hoekstra, we knew, had the one. They have 2 more. He literally told Tyson, and he told me the same thing, that it's a unicorn when they get these things. They made 50 orders in 2020, early 2022. None of them were delivered. They all got pushed to 2023, and they literally will see them. They'll get a 24-hour notice that the truck will be there to drop it off, and just when they get them. And so it could be now, it could be 6 months, it could be a whole nother year before now you might get it. And then you got to get the opening with the other manufacturer to recertify it. So the good news is that they got 2 of them. They didn't have anybody else for the other at that moment. And so they offered it to us. Literally while I was there, he's like, I was getting ready to call you guys. They just literally off the truck 5 minutes ago, another one came. And if you want it, it's yours. If not, we're going to sell it. They wouldn't keep it for like 2 months. They're like, it's yours, and we'll keep it to Monday night, Tuesday. After that, they're gone. So, some data for you on these. We did have the athletic directors collect some data. We're spending almost $20,000 a year at each high school just for van rentals. And then we are also spending what they feel is probably between $15,000 to $25,000 a year in additional charters that that could probably be alleviated. We will still need some charters when we take all 3 basketball teams, track team of 80 kids right from that element. But sometimes when we take some of our smaller teams, baseball, softball, Also Quiz Bowl, robotics, those elements, you know, and that are non-sports, but a lot of our academic-related clubs that opportunity. So, you know, we really feel that we're gonna see somewhere between that $20,000 to $40,000 a year savings off of our transportation budget, which have been outrageous, and chargers are only going up. About a $3,000 price tag just for us to take a charter bus. So we are hopeful at this point. You can see the payback rather quickly for what these cost and the eventual structural savings that a van that hopefully gives us 5-10 years, you know, and because really, you know, they don't accumulate that many miles. It's just probably a long distance when that happens. And so we are recommending at this point to move forward with this. So Christine, any additional things you might have
No,
on that?
and if you'll recall, we already received approval from the board before for the electric vehicle, so that's on order. So we'll have 1 electric and 3 gas vehicles.
So essentially 2 available to each high school. And again, they could swap if one wanted 3 for a situation or 4 for that.
Is there any difference between the 2 from Gorno and the 1 from Hoekstra?
The only difference is that Gorno is participating in My Deal pricing. Because they have them already, they don't have to order them. They can get discounted pricing, like government pricing. Hoekstra has to order it and get it made for us. That's why My Deal pricing is not available.
Hence why they, like I said, they do this, the special ordering.
And it's again, we're at the mercy of the supply and demand.
Are both Hoekstra and Gorno just dealerships, or are they actually doing the retrofitting?
So Hoekstra actually, I believe, ordered them from Ford that way. They're a bus dealer.
Yep.
And so I believe they ordered it made that way. I think this is the kind of difference, because it's bought through the regular dealer side and then remanufactured over at the mobility accessible remanufacturer. I think they're able to get that government pricing, kind of like a GSA contract or, you know, our state My Deal, that bid, where the Hoekstra one's not through that program. And I honestly believe they just pay quite a bit more for it because of that, because it comes that way as the 10 passenger that, you know, a school bus company orders, which makes sense.
And then so to make it 10 passenger.
I believe the Hoekstra one comes from the factory that way.
Yes.
Right, but it's wheelchair accessible, right?
No.
No?
No, they just take the 2 seats out and put running boards on it.
Okay.
They don't do a lot.
And
they put and put it and recertify it with a new tag that says 1 driver, 9 passengers.
Yeah. Which is very different than, we can't just buy a 12 and take out 2 seats and say it's a 10. Can't do that.
We can't do
They
it.
can legally do it.
Because we can't buy it in the first place if it has the 12.
Right.
It's a really weird loophole, but I got a real experience in Downriver, Michigan on Friday learning about all
I'm
this.
pretty confident you're the only superintendent who showed up in person.
I'm pretty
You're
sure.
at the top of their waiting list.
I'm trying.
So if Gorno were to call between now and September 1st and say, hey, we actually got a 3rd one, are we held
No,
to this
at this
one?
point, they will, I believe, does Hoekstra have the van, or is it?
On order.
It's on order.
It'll be
Yeah, it
on
says
order
September.
once we approve.
Yeah.
And are
So-
we, if one were to come up that were $20,000
You know,
cheaper?
I
are we
would tell you
held
this,
to-
that I
price
guess,
tag
but we deal a lot with Hoekstra with bus and bus parts, and I would not want to risk that relationship.
Okay.
You know, of when we need a bus part or certain bus parts, and, you know, there's a fair way of doing business, and I just don't think that.
But it
that
doesn't
would
If
be-
that was a high-level concern, I would recommend not approving Hoekstra and just waiting,
Yeah.
if
But-
that were the board's concern.
But again, 3 vans don't do, you know, which high school do you tell you only get 1, and it doesn't save, again, needing a bus or renting more if you can get even the rentals from and again, the rentals, by law, you're only supposed to do very, very minimally. And so, you know, this gets us fully in compliance.
And the other change was that we're now purchasing all these with current school year funds.
Correct.
We're not deferring anything to next
Correct.
year.
It's because of when they're received. So it has to come out of the budget year when they're received, and because this one showed up now, we'd be paying for it now and not September, which would be next year's budget.
But we might not actually get it till September, right?
No, this one's there.
The
Yeah.
two are there now.
2 are here.
One is
Hoekstra's
maybe
order.
by September.
Yeah.
Okay.
One's in the ocean.
And that's why the fiscal year changed, because it just showed up.
Gotcha.
can I ask a question? Was the goal always to have 4 total?
Yes.
Okay.
Because essentially the numbers, if you think about it, if you have a coach in each one, 9 kids, 18 kids between the two.
Well, I remember.
Covers
you and-
baseball, covers a lot of the smaller teams, golf, you generally have more than 9, but not, more than 18.
Yeah.
And so 2 makes it to where a team can go.
Right.
1 doesn't.
Well, I remember a couple years ago, you and I talking, and we were talking specifically about the ski team,
Yeah.
and you had said the goal was to get these vans, and so here it is. Okay. Got it.
And the gas ones can get them to Washington DC.
True.
Without worrying quite so much about where you fill them up with.
Though, if you're on interstate, so I learned this in my trip to, my last trip, that I actually rented a Tesla because it was always available. But I actually found it pleasantly surprised. As long as you're near an interstate, now most of the large gas stations have transferred over to either a Tesla or another brand supercharger. And so it took me about 20 minutes plug in to have a full charge that got me about 250 miles. So I was actually rather impressed with it from that standpoint, and they're only getting, that element. So, this is, I want to say, in the 180 range is what a charge is expected on this van, the electric one we bought. So I think, it's not all that, and the navigation systems map out for you exactly where you need to stop to be able
For
to
us,
get that
most
charge.
of them are, like all of our travel is virtually all of the, 99% of the travel is going to be within Michigan. I think
And most of it will be
Myers
in
have-
conference. So if you take the Big North Conference, but remember, we drive to Alpena 2.5 hours on a Tuesday night. So, but there are Cadillac, Gaylord, Alpena, all have the charging stations, that we would need to charge those. And,
Alpena has a
and
Myers
most of them, you're gonna get there and back on a full charge. Alpena might be the one that's a little close, but
I think that's got, I said virtually, I think virtually every Myers now is having, that's the
yeah,
whole thing.
a lot. The Tesla network and, as long as you have the adapter and stuff, you can hook the supercharger, so.
I think you guys addressed this at finance, but it includes the charging infrastructure?
Yes,
The electric one we
Last
purchased
month.
did?
yes,
For the electric one,
yes.
yeah.
I was also pleasantly, I've rented and been given an electric car, which at first was
Yeah.
hard to figure out, but
Yeah.
it only took a little while.
Unless you rent an electric car and there's no charge.
Oh,
Which happened to me when we missed our flight, and your gas tank is like this big, because on those hybrids,
Yeah.
a tiny little
Right.
gas tank. So from Grand Rapids to Traverse City,
Yeah.
we were empty. It was
Yeah,
kinda
note to
crazy.
self, charge it before you leave the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was a
That's the
rental. This was a
dealership.
rental. Yeah, who knew? I didn't know. Now I know.
All right. Do we have any other discussion or motion?
And this,
I can move. I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of 3 10-passenger Ford vans, one from Hoekstra Transportation for a total amount not to exceed $75,000 and $75,050, funded from the General Fund 2023 to 2024 budget, and 2 from Gorno Ford on MI deal contract number 071B7700181 for a total amount not to exceed $52,997, each funded from the General Fund 2022 to 2023 budget.
I second.
All right. Megan, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Pack?
Yes.
Trustee Byrd?
Yes.
Trustee Moon-Moore?
yes.
Trustee Newman-Vale?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to the next agenda item, social media litigation. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
So you may remember the Jewel litigation not that long ago. Well, the same company, the same litigation group, Franz Law Group, has essentially, they're working on a class action lawsuit against social media that has targeted kids, that has caused a lot of different things that we've had to deal with, obviously. I will tell you at first, I wasn't sure on this. We're educators and not, trying to get into lawsuits all over the place and this. I think from some colleagues that really had done this in our region that had convinced me is that I think there's a moral statement to make here of the realities of some of these things that are dangerous to kids that we see that, a thread's there that it disappears. Law enforcement has to try and track it down. We spend ungodly hours on it. And they've been clearly targeted towards kids. And so at some point, we have to stand up and say that these things are hurtful, they're hurtful to our systems, And unless we do something like this, I don't know that it's gonna, have any kind of controls and stop. So that really convinced me at this point to bring it to the board and to work again with Troon and Friends Law Group exactly the same way the Jewel lawsuit happened. Again, this is just the beginnings of a class action, and we would have to decide on the edit. Again, no cost to us unless there's damages awarded. And so it's my recommendation to the board that we join that suit.
And this did come up in executive, and we quickly punted it to the full board because I figured we're gonna have to make a discussion or decision anyway, so we may as well have the discussion in this meeting. So does anyone have any comments to kick it off or questions?
I would just say, I mean, I agree with you in spirit, wholeheartedly. We've definitely, heard about the harm it's incurred and the resources it's drawn from the district. But do we know specifically what they're intending to do? Are they looking at censoring, filtering?
No, because it's just damages. I mean, you can't force that. This is
Okay.
taking it to the pocketbook from that standpoint to try and enforce change, to push change.
Okay.
What damages are they looking to sue for? That's, I guess, what I'm wondering.
I think it's the cost that districts have incurred in staffing and those issues from the specific target of these things towards kids.
It's a very large number that will get negotiated around and thrown out.
Yeah, again, do I expect we're gonna get, million? I don't, right? But, so, from a dollar standpoint, I don't know, what I say really in this. At first, I will tell you, I was kind of like, like I said. But I do think collectively as an education group across our state, I think districts are, from a moral standpoint, joining it in that belief to try and make change.
I really feel like I need more information.
So
The I think part of it is I think,
Yeah.
and that's okay to say I think. That's an
And
honest
other
answer.
than what was provided in the packet from them, that, we don't have much more than that.
Are we allowed to refer to the letter in the packet?
Say that again,
Are we
please?
allowed to refer to the letter in the packet?
We are.
So there's 125 schools in Michigan that are already
Yeah.
kind of on board,
Yeah.
and then who knows how many nationwide. So we're not the only district.
No,
We're
by
not-
far.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and actually, down in the fourth paragraph, they say, such property damage is caused by students engaging in social media trends and any lost state aid caused by social media suspensions and expulsions. And then they also talk a little bit about future damages, that they're seeking compensation for appropriately handling social media issues.
I mean, there was
For
multiple
counselors and basically social emotional learning.
Yeah.
As a
It's pretty
side effect.
wide open of a truck, but,
It is. My question
Oh.
is, would we be able to earmark anything we recoup from this towards mental health?
I believe so. If you
Social-
take off the Jewel lawsuit, we had full authority just to be able to put that in general fund costs, whatever we felt fit. So if I'm patterning off of that, I would say yes. But I can't guarantee what an outcome would be in any directive from that point.
Because it just seems to me that it'd make more of a moral sense if we directly.
But I think that the board has that
try
authority to
to-
do that. It's either gonna come directing you to do that, or the board will have the authority to do that.
Hey, you guys feel strong? No.
No, I mean,
Well,
it's,
I love your optimism. How long did the Jewel litigation go on?
About a year.
Really? I thought it
Wasn't
was
that
longer
long?
than that.
No,
These are big companies, and I do.
and that was a
feel
settlement.
The hesitation
so-
on it. I don't
No
think
idea.
money solves everything, and I don't want to give that message
No,
to the kids, but I want to see us use the money that we garner to address the problem within
and
the
again,
school system.
totally the board's purview on how you want to.
unless it's
If we
part of a
garner
settlement, like where you have to use it against something, then like last time we got to use it as the board sees fit.
So if you join, they're gonna do a cost assessment? They're gonna come to you and audit, like basically audit you how many
No idea.
staff hours?
I don't think so. I think it'll be a settlement. I
They
think
talk about
if,
making
my
hours.
guess would be, it's gonna be a settlement. It'll be based on the size of your district. That's the way the last one was. And you're gonna get a percentage of portion of the settlement based upon that and the different entities that are in the litigation
They
group.
go through and they say statistically this is how much it's cost a district.
With
to
about
cost you.
35% off the top for legal.
Yeah, Yeah, because Thrun gets like a
I read
16th
it's
of the cost.
25% of which
for
Troon
referral.
gets a cut. 25% goes to France, of which Troon receives a
Yes.
portion.
Yeah,
So I think
25%
this,
of the 25.
what was last time, you remember? It was 35 last time for Joel. They gave us a deal this time.
Well, not really, because it's 25 and then there's another, there's referral.
Okay.
So I don't know, I could do the math.
And
I've been
again,
awake for a long time.
we're, I wouldn't plan on anything major with a large amount. It's just the moral element of it.
I think,
I felt
yeah.
had some,
I know
I
Eric
would
has-
just like to say, and this is gonna be a total curveball, but I think that if we're talking about the moral element here, I think our discussion on cell phone use in our school buildings is probably a better discussion. And I don't think it's here today that we should necessarily bring it up, but I do think that if we take a stand and join in on a lawsuit against social media, I think we should have a long, deep conversation about allowing our kids to use their phones the way that they're being used in our buildings.
and that can be a discussion that can be had.
You know, I mean, I've walked into lots of buildings and, you know, lots, and, I mean, they can use them, a lot, and they can sit and do social media over, you know, the entire lunch period.
And, and that's gonna be a more of a public, I mean, you're gonna need, because we also get emails from people that I depend on being able to contact my kid through text, this information, all that, so if you don't have it, I have no way to make sure that they know if they can go to home, or if they're going to dad's and a divorce, or this or that.
Yeah, and
So-
I don't mean like, I mean, again, this is a much deeper conversation
Yeah.
than tonight. But I do think it's a worthy conversation, and I don't necessarily mean you can't use your cell phone. I mean, because
Kristen and I had this conversation, and we've had a couple parents, and we've had parents on both sides of it. So I think like it's a pretty deep conversation. And if we want to have the discussion later at some point, we can. But just do know that it's a big elephant.
yeah, no, I know, and that, but talking about a lawsuit
Yeah.
about social media, it
Yeah,
doesn't feel
that's fair.
right to say, but we
That's
allow
fair.
our kids to use it in our school
That's fair.
buildings, but we're saying it causes damage. So
Yeah.
that's just my point.
And again, not all social media, right? But, there are some, I think, that are worse than others and, different things. So, but like I said, I struggled with this one. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, at first I was like, nah, I'm not taking this. I'm not doing this, But as I saw their districts and had the conversation, I'm like, all right. So.
I guess I struggle personally with it because I believe in free speech and parent responsibility and student responsibility, but I have to separate. I think also social media is really destructive and evil as well. So, and I have to separate my personal opinions of freedoms to what's best for the school district as well. So.
Tell me how you really feel.
Right.
Oh, I said I'm just like everyone else. I mean, I use it for work, and I look at it every now and then. I'm like, what am I doing?
And
Why do I
to be
hate this?
very clear, I will not be heard in any way, shape, or form wherever the board decides. So.
I just want to say this, because as an attorney, I don't like other attorneys that make up lawsuits to make money.
Right. I don't either,
And
Holly.
this feels like this to me a little
Well,
bit.
you
And
know-
it's not that I don't believe that
I hear
social
you.
media is bad, because I do, believe that to some degree. I don't think it's all bad, but I think some of it is. But this kind of feels like it to me, this particular request.
So I agree, and the only reason it's kind of pushed me over the edge is talking to students and other people. I mean, I think we were a little lucky. Maybe Christine would say otherwise, but I mean, there was like times where like wasn't there like one we had to steal the toilet? Like there was like
we had
damage,
TikTok
physical damage
challenges
done.
where bathrooms were destroyed.
What could you steal? Doors, the larger items, things like
We
that.
tried to keep up on the next one that was coming up so that we just knew what to watch for.
So like when that was the one that pushed
Soap
me over the
dispensers.
edge,
Yeah.
was like there was like very specific. It wasn't just a general, and I do have a general disdain for social media, but again, I use it myself. So, but like there was things like that where there was destructive patterns that I think clearly should have been shut down because they were destructive. But again, then you go into the whole.
I'll share too,
freedom of speech,
doing the
so.
Title VI investigations, the Title IX investigations, the amount of social media that's used for bullying, whether it's sexual-based bullying, gender-based bullying, race-based bullying that comes on social media. And I think part of, again, not defending law firms, but what they're looking at is that these platforms don't remove those posts even when requested to do so. And so you're allowing minors to post things that are potentially detrimental and driven to mental health of students, and there's very little in terms of oversight of that. And not to mention, there's also discussion about the algorithms that they use to pull young people in, that there needs to be some sort of accountability to that piece. So from that standpoint, I understand the need. But again, I'm with John, it's obviously a board decision.
Do you happen to have an estimate of how many allegations in our district are driven, of harassment and bullying are driven by social media versus in our buildings?
I would suggest, now here's the other piece, we don't always know when they're posting those things. So it could
Right.
be home, on their home networks, but you've got the Tinker lawsuit effect that isn't bleeding into the school environment. Because it may be posted in the evening, but kids are pulling it up and looking at it and laughing at it during the school day, whether it be a TikTok video mocking someone or, those using different, so it's hard to say that it's necessarily all school-based, but it's definitely bleeding into the school. And to be honest, in an investigation standpoint, having screenshots of those things makes my job a little bit easier, but some of the things I've seen are appalling.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that they can find a nexus between this stuff, bullying and all of that, and we're gonna try to force them to take it off of their social media when it happens. It's not gonna prevent the bullying, that's the thing. For
Yeah.
me, it's not gonna prevent that piece of it, but we're just more concerned about them taking it off when it happens.
And I'm only speaking to one little piece of it that I touch, but I think that,
everyone's
it's
kind
just
of
trying to
full
remove
different
that additional platform that kids can bully.
Yeah.
I've seen some where there's posts that say to kids, you should go kill yourself.
Yep.
And the
I've seen
parents
them.
see that and they ask for that to be removed, and, the barriers to have those sorts of posts removed are very difficult, but very impactful on the young person that they're directed at. So whether or not a lawsuit would impact that, but I think that's the position that they're taking, that someone needs to hold them accountable.
Now, whether that's valid or not?
Yeah, that's the argument.
I share many arguments with you, but I said that's why I'm separating my school board hat and other personal opinion hat. But yeah. And there is definitely merit to it. I clearly know there's been damage caused directly to the district because
Well, I'd
of
be
it,
more
so.
concerned about that, the damage, because if there is a legitimate claim for
Yeah.
damage, then there is.
I'd say on balance, I would be in favor of it.
I just kind of feel that's where we're at. It's time to deal with
Well,
cards.
I mean, let's have, if anyone has a motion, we'll find out, I guess, so.
Just one more thing I wanted to add. I read a CDC article last week that said bulimia and anorexia are at historic highs, because of social media as well. Because of the algorithm issue you were talking about. And so girls particularly are susceptible to that and they just get looped in. So that's just another outcome that I hadn't thought of before, the social media.
Do we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution joining the nationwide litigation against Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and other social media platforms, and authorize Dr. Van Wagner or designee to sign the attorney-client fee contract on behalf of the school and to take such other action as necessary to obtain monetary damages and injunctive relief for the school in the lawsuit, subject to review by the school's legal counsel.
I second.
All right. Megan, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Moon-Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
Trustee Byrd,
Yes.
Trustee Newman-Vale,
Yes.
Trustee Pack,
Yes.
Trustee Raymond.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. I think we'll all struggle, but there it is.
Yep.
That was about the shakiest,
I keep you on it. Yep, I know.
who knew what was gonna happen
Yep,
there?
I know.
Huh?
I think we can tell from the tone too. No one's
Yep.
happy about it, but we
No.
all agree that there's issues. So, all right. Moving on. 2023 bond ratification resolution. Do we have to have a
Christine?
discussion?
Yeah, so Andrew gave a pretty good update about the bond sale, which was on May 4th. I was a little bit nervous after Dr. Van Wagner told me he had been hearing from some school districts downstate that weren't getting any bids, but very surprised and pleased to see 13 bidders. They bid all within 11 basis points, so very, very, very close. True interest cost, because we did have some premium and some coupons, the true interest cost a little bit over 2.79%. And actually, our financial advisor was projecting 2.7, so pretty darn close with the projections. I think at the end of last calendar year, true interest cost for bonds sold for schools were about 3.3%. So we've definitely seen a downward shift. I do think that our excellent credit rating did help. Our bonds are very attractable because we sell them in 10-year series. So there's a lot of pieces and parts that make them very attractable, but very excited.
They tax-free too, are they?
Yes,
They are municipal, but, and that's, the term in that is big difference. So
Yeah.
like a lot of the districts out there are doing a 20 or a 25. And people are like, I don't know, I want to have that money up in that long, A 10, I think is much more attractive in that instance. So I think that's why we saw such a great, offering with.
I was actually I know that was pretty close to estimates, but I was pleasantly surprised when it came in.
Good news.
And it was high. I mean, if you track the bond market, thankful, good timing for not being
No doubt.
2 months ago.
Yes.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education adopt the 2023 bond ratification resolution detailing the terms and conditions of the Traverse City Area Public Schools competitive 2023 bond sale.
I second.
Megan, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Byrd?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Moonmore?
Yes.
Trustee Newman Bell?
Yes.
Trustee Pack?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, we're flying now. So move on to the next discussion item, interdistrict open enrollment. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
So every year, traditionally, we have adopted this open enrollment policy. You remember it is different than the statewide school of choice option in that it is limited to students within our own intermediate school district boundaries. Again, with different mill rates for especially such special education services, career tech education, those things, that is something that districts have traditionally done. The document was actually updated by True. Northwest Education Services asked for that review and update, and it was updated. And I'm not gonna hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure one of the things that they did mention to us is that we may not have to do this for the next 3 years. That essentially it's a 3-year agreement that would be there. I'm gonna double check on that one with that, but that was mentioned to us at our superintendent's meeting. So essentially, this is just the legal authority that the board has to adopt in order to accept that inter-district open enrollment for kids from other districts to be able to come to TCAPS within Northwest Education Services boundaries.
Any other discussion?
What's the downside, if any, for us of opting for this versus the state policy?
There's no downside really other than, so for instance, we have had situations, for instance, where we've had a student from like MESIC want to be able to come. We had one situation, I'll give you a perfect example. When we had so 2 students that were in one of our elementaries, and they were about 3/4 of the way through the year, and they moved. And they moved to MESIC, which is that's in Wexford, Massaukee ISD, and moved out of the boundaries. They wanted to keep the kids in school, worked here, but their housing situation changed for them to live there. They wanted to stay here, but based off of that agreement, legally, you can't. So that's the downside of this. The upside of this, though, is that you don't have an influx of people that pay very low taxes and don't pay for the services within our ISD for special education and career tech services that a lot of our taxpayers honor and feel, that we ask them to pay. And so especially on the boundary districts around the ISD, they would have an influx because the ISDs around do not have the mill rates and the support for those services that we do. And so essentially, that's the thought process many, many years ago when this was developed.
And what about our virtual programs? How does it affect that?
Again, same thing. Any student from that standpoint, this is what it is.
Yeah.
The only option that falls on this, there is a provision if you have a student that has officially dropped out of school. There is some alternative ed language that will allow you to enroll them. But again, where we're at, the boundaries of our ISD for a student to enroll with us, like I said, music's probably that closest one from that standpoint. You know, nobody's generally gonna drive or look for services an hour away or an hour and a half away. So that's the closest one, and I have run into that situation one time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or motion?
I move that the Board of Education reaffirm the action to exercise the option permitted by Section 105 of the State School Aid Act of 1979 as amended by Public Act 300 of 1996, Senate Bill 851, and not accept applications of non-resident students from outside the district for purposes of operating an intermediate school district-wide schools of choice program in accordance with Section 105 for 2023-24, 2024-25, and 2025-26 school years. This means to opt out of the state plan and adopt the Northwest Education Services Plan.
Second.
Megan, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Moonmore?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Byrd?
Yes.
Trustee Newman Vale?
Yes.
Trustee Pack?
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to the resolution of recognition and appreciation for the 2022-2023 district retirees. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
So again, each year we have a resolution to recognize our retirees. While they're few in number, they're strong in stature, so we would recommend that the board adopt the resolution.
All right, any discussion?
None. I'm happy to pass this.
Yeah. I believe you read the retiree recognition before the motion.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right, so the resolution of recognition and appreciation states that Traverse City Area Public Schools has been fortunate to have a dedicated staff committed to the mission of the district. Several members of the staff are now about to embark on new adventures in life away from TCAPS. Members of the TCAPS Board of Education wish to extend our utmost appreciation for the work that these staff members have done to make education an exciting and joyous experience for the students of our district. The Board of Education wishes to extend our sincere best wishes for every happiness in the future to those staff members who will be leaving the district at the end of the school year, 2022 to 2023. The TCAPS Board of Education recognizes and appreciates the service of those employees departing the district and wishes them well in all future endeavors, and further that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded and in the minutes of the Traverse City Area Public Schools Board of Education on this 8th day of the month of May in the year 2023. And now I will read off the names of the 16 retirees we have as of the end of this school year, followed by the years of their service with TCAPS. First is Susan Brown, 24 years, dispatcher and bus driver, transportation. Nancy Burns, 16 years, B. Cook, Central High School. Ernie Cassiaglia, 6.5 years, technology application specialist, Sabin Data Center. Marie Deturi, 18 years, extended day program manager, Great Start Readiness Program assistant, preschool classroom assistant, Silver Lake Elementary School. Kim Dorgan, 25 years, elementary teacher, Cherry Knoll Elementary School. Sharon Fewens, 21 years, CI Special Education Assistant, Central Grade School. James Gilmett, 34 years, bus driver, transportation. Sherilyn Hilden, 22 years, early childhood special education teacher, Eastern Elementary School. Mary Colley, preschool classroom manager, Willow Hill Elementary School, 22 years. And Marcy King, 25 years, chemistry teacher, Central High School. Gwendolyn Lautner, 20.5 years, preschool classroom assistant, Central Grade School. Leanne Murchie, 31 years, bus driver, transportation. Charles Rennie, 25 years, social studies teacher, West Senior High School. Biz Ruskowski, 29 years, elementary principal, Eastern Elementary School. Renee Sanders, 37 years, elementary education teacher, Cortade Elementary School, and Mary Beth Stein, 29 years, pupil accounting coordinator, Boardman Administration Building. I apologize to anyone whose name I might have butchered. Thank you, everybody, for your years of service.
Thank you.
All right.
I move that the Board of Education adopt the resolution of recognition and appreciation of the district's 2022-23 retirees.
I second.
All right. There you go. I figured that would be a popular one to propose. Megan, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Moonmore?
Yes.
Trustee Byrd?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Newman Vale?
Yes.
Trustee Pack?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. The next discussion item is the amended item, discussion K, Board Policy 8510. It was pulled from consent and added to discussion. Beth, I think we'll kick off with your question.
All I had was 3 questions, and they're very general. One of them is it refers to guidelines in here, and I just wondered what the guidelines were and where they were.
So again, that's the administrative guidelines we talked about earlier on the site, and that's again at the purview of the superintendent. So you can look online and you will find the corresponding guidelines by number to the policy.
Okay. I'll do that. And this policy, is this the policy that's referred to on page 2? And when it says the district health and well-being team will be responsible for, and it lists 5 things. So the policy's in B, C, D, and E. So I'm assuming that the policy is the policy that it is, correct?
Say that one more time.
Exactly, it's strange. There are policies listed here. It says, review of the district's health and well-being policy, that the team is responsible for that. And it, presentation of the health and well-being policy and guideline of the school board for approval. Implementation of, measurement of the implementation of the policy. Each time it refers to policy, it's referring to this document?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. And my only other question was a definition of what a model wellness policy was. And maybe that's just a technicality that.
It's what we determine it is from that
We'll just leave it as a
standpoint.
technicality.
Yep.
Because that could mean anything.
That's very, very abstract.
Well, yes and no.
It's kind of spelled out in the second paragraph.
Okay, I'll accept that. Okay, that was
Okay,
it. Just
thank you.
questions.
All right. Any other questions? We do now have to have a motion to approve
To
this
accept
policy.
it as amended?
No,
As presented.
as presented.
Nothing was changed. You just
Right.
asked questions.
Okay. So I move that the revised health and well-being policy 8510 be accepted as amended,
No.
as presented.
So now you're gonna
Yep, you,
have to remove your motion.
yeah. You can just say I withdraw my motion and then restate it as presented because it's not.
Or you can withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion and due to technicality. And I move that the revised health and wellness policy 8510 be approved
As
as
presented.
as written.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
works.
Do I have a
Works.
second? Yep.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? Megan, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Pack?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Byrd?
Yes.
Trustee Moonmore?
Yes.
Trustee Newman Vale?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Motion carries. That is the last discussion item, so we move on to public comment number 2. Is there any public comment?
Well, any? Okay.
You sure?
The last man standing.
Come on.
Yeah, I know, I was gonna say. All right, moving the closing remarks, just following up as what I said before, we suddenly have had a lot of emails. I apologize, my work schedule, and Vice President Humphries was covering mine, the email, but she is also unable to respond at this time. So we will get back on track and get those answered. Anything as far as bond planning, we are very open. Nothing has been decided at this time, and we are definitely in the investigatory phases. And please keep those comments and feedback and surveys coming in. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned.